If you don't subscribe to the channel, all the stories will happen to you. Get ready for the nightmare. It was a chilly autumn evening when I first noticed her. I had just finished a late shift at the diner, the kind of night where the air felt heavy with anticipation, and the streetlights flickered like fading stars. The small town of Miller's Creek was quiet, almost too quiet, as I made my way down the dimly lit streets toward my apartment. As I passed the old park, I caught a glimpse of a figure sitting on a swing. The swing creaked softly, swaying gently, as if it were caught in a breeze that didn't exist. I paused for a moment, squinting through the darkness. There she was, a woman cloaked in shadows, her face illuminated only by the faint light of the nearby lamppost. Something about her drew me in. Maybe it was the way she seemed completely at ease in the stillness of the night. Or perhaps it was the smile that graced her lips, a warm, inviting smile that contrasted sharply with the chill in the air. I felt an inexplicable urge to approach her. "Hey there," I called out, my voice breaking the silence. "Are you all right?" The woman turned her head slowly, and as she did, I caught sight of her eyes. They were striking, deep green, almost luminescent in the darkness. Her smile widened, revealing a hint of mischief, and she gestured for me to come closer. "I'm just enjoying the night," she said, her voice smooth and melodic. "It's nice to see someone else out here." I took a few cautious steps closer, the gravel crunching beneath my feet. "It's a bit late to be alone in the park, don't you think?" I tried to sound casual, but a knot of unease twisted in my stomach. Her laughter rang out like chimes in the wind, light and airy. "Oh, I'm not alone. I have the night to keep me company." She motioned to the surrounding trees, their branches swaying slightly, as if they were part of some secret dance. There was something strange about her, a quality that felt otherworldly, yet I couldn't put my finger on it. "I'm Roxanne, by the way," I said, extending my hand. "Lydia," she replied, taking my hand with an unexpected warmth. Her grip was firm yet delicate, and I could feel a strange energy pulsing between us. We stood there for a moment, the world around us fading into silence. I was captivated by her presence, drawn into a conversation that felt both familiar and foreign. As we talked, I learned that she had moved to Miller's Creek just a few weeks prior, searching for a fresh start. I could see the weight of the world in her eyes, a hint of sadness behind that enchanting smile. But there was also a spark, a glimmer of something unexplainable. "I have this theory," she said, tilting her head slightly. "I believe that every person you meet in the dark has a story worth telling." "What's yours?" Her question took me by surprise. I had never thought of myself as someone with a remarkable story, just an ordinary girl working at a diner, dreaming of something bigger. Yet, standing there with Lydia, I felt the urge to share everything. The loneliness, the dreams, the fears. As I opened up about my life, I noticed how her gaze never wavered, as if she were hanging onto my every word. I spoke of my aspirations to write, the stories swirling in my mind, and the struggle to break free from the mundane. Lydia listened intently, her smile encouraging, and I felt a sense of connection that I hadn't experienced in years. But as the conversation deepened, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her than met the eye. The shadows around us seemed to shift and swirl, and for a fleeting moment, I could have sworn I saw a flicker of something darker behind her smile. "Tell me," she urged, leaning closer, "what do you fear the most?" The question sent a shiver down my spine. "I fear being forgotten," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "That my stories won't matter, that I'll fade away into nothing." Lydia's expression softened, and she nodded as if she understood more than she let on. "You won't be forgotten, Roxanne. Every story matters, especially the ones told in the dark." Her words hung in the air, thick with an unexplainable weight. Just as I was about to respond, a sudden rustling in the bushes nearby interrupted us. I turned, my heart racing. The shadows seemed to thicken around us, and I felt a cold breeze sweep through the park, sending a chill down my spine. "Maybe we should go," I suggested, glancing back at her. But Lydia's smile remained unchanged, almost mischievous. "What's the hurry? The night is still young, and there are so many stories waiting to be told." As I hesitated, torn between curiosity and caution, I realized I was at a crossroads. There was something enchanting about Lydia, a pull that kept me rooted to the spot. Yet, a flicker of instinct urged me to retreat. The night felt alive, a canvas of secrets and shadows, and I was not sure I wanted to dive deeper into its mysteries. The rustling in the bushes had jolted me out of my reverie. I glanced nervously at the shadows surrounding the park, and for a brief moment, I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. "Lydia, did you hear that?" I asked, my voice tinged with uncertainty. She tilted her head, her expression still calm. "What is it that you hear?" she replied, her voice almost teasing. It was as if she relished the fear creeping into my heart, as though she knew something I didn't. It sounded like I hesitated, unsure how to articulate the tension thickening in the air. It sounded like something is out there. I scanned the dark corners of the park, half expecting to see a pair of glowing eyes staring back at me. Lydia laughed softly, a sound that seemed to echo into the depths of the night. "You're too caught up in the shadows. There's nothing here but the night and its stories." Her confidence was unsettling, but part of me was drawn to it, wanting to be swept away by her unfazed demeanor. I swallowed hard, trying to shake off the unease that gripped me. "Right, it's just the wind," I murmured, though the sinking feeling in my gut remained. "Still, maybe we should." Before I could finish my thought, a low whisper floated through the air, barely audible, yet eerily clear. "Roxanne." It was my name, spoken in a soft, lingering tone that sent chills down my spine. I turned sharply, scanning the dark, but there was nothing there, just the trees swaying gently in the breeze. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my heart racing. "Someone called my name." Lydia's smile faded slightly, replaced by an intrigued expression. "The night has its way of revealing secrets, doesn't it?" she said softly, her eyes glimmering with something almost sinister. "What do you mean?" I felt a chill crawl up my back, and instinctively took a step back, wanting to distance myself from whatever was brewing in the darkness. "Sometimes," she began, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "the night listens to us. It knows our fears and our desires, and it reflects them back at us in ways we don't always understand." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This isn't just a game, is it? I don't want to be part of some creepy story. "Oh, but Roxanne," Lydia leaned closer, her voice low and enticing. "You already are part of it. Every moment you spend here, every story you share, it becomes a thread in the tapestry of the night. And I'm afraid you can't just walk away from it." I felt a pang of panic, but there was also a strange allure in her words. "What do you mean? What happens if I don't walk away?" "Then you might just discover the truth hidden in the shadows," she replied, her smile returning. "But be careful. Some truths are best left undiscovered." The atmosphere felt heavy, as if the very air around us pulsed with a tension I couldn't quite grasp. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to escape the strange magnetic pull Lydia had over me. But something, perhaps the very essence of curiosity, kept me rooted to the spot. Then, suddenly, the whispers returned, swirling around us like a soft breeze. "Roxanne, help me. Did you hear that?" I gasped, feeling my heart race even faster. "Who's there?" "It's just the night, calling out," Lydia replied, her tone casual, as if we were discussing the weather rather than the haunting echoes that surrounded us. "No, it's not just the night. Someone needs help." Panic washed over me, and I felt the urge to run, to escape the unsettling atmosphere that seemed to close in around us. But Lydia reached out, gently grasping my wrist, her touch grounding yet unsettling. "Listen to me. Sometimes the night reveals things we're not ready to see. It wants you to understand something important. You have to let go of your fear." As her words lingered in the air, I felt a strange warmth spread through me, as if she were infusing courage into my veins. "But what if what I discover is something I can't handle?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Then you'll face it," Lydia replied firmly, "and I'll be right here with you." In that moment, I felt an inexplicable trust in her. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Okay," I said, though uncertainty gnawed at the edges of my resolve. "Show me." As soon as the words left my mouth, the whispers intensified, rising and falling like the wind through the trees. It was a cacophony of voices, each one swirling around us, tugging at the fabric of reality. I closed my eyes, focusing on the sounds that enveloped me. "Roxanne." The voice echoed once more, drawing me in. "Help me, find me. Who are you?" I shouted into the darkness, desperate for an answer. "What do you want from me?" But the shadows only seemed to thicken, pulsating with energy. I felt as if I was teetering on the edge of something vast and unfathomable, and the thrill of discovery mixed with fear coursed through my veins. Lydia's presence beside me felt like an anchor in the storm, and as I opened my eyes, I turned to her, searching for guidance. "What do we do?" "Follow the whispers," she urged, her voice steady and unwavering. "They will lead us to the truth, but be prepared for what you might find." And with that, I took a step forward, deeper into the shadows, feeling the pull of the unknown drawing me in, my heart pounding in my chest. The shadows around us thickened as I stepped deeper into the darkness, each footfall echoing with uncertainty. Lydia's presence beside me was both comforting and disquieting, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the unsettling whispers that filled the air. "You can do this, Roxanne," she said softly, her encouragement cutting through the oppressive tension. "Trust yourself and listen closely." With every step, I felt as if the darkness was alive, wrapping around me, urging me forward. The whispers rose and fell like the tide, sometimes indistinct and other times clear, their urgency palpable. "Help me, find me. Who are you?" I called out again, my voice trembling. "Why do you need help?" The wind shifted, carrying the voice with it, wrapping around me like an icy tendril. "I'm lost." The words resonated in the silence, pulling me deeper into the night's embrace. "Where are you?" I pressed, my heart racing. "What do you need?" "The truth," the voice replied, the sound fading into the air, but its impact lingered. I looked at Lydia, her expression unchanging yet enigmatic, and I felt a swell of determination within me. I had to uncover the source of this haunting plea. We walked in silence, the world around us growing darker as we moved deeper into the park. The trees loomed overhead, their branches clawing at the night sky, and the moonlight filtered through the leaves, casting eerie shadows that danced on the ground. "Where are we going?" I asked, glancing nervously at Lydia. "Just a little further," she replied cryptically, a hint of excitement in her voice. "Trust me." After what felt like an eternity, we reached a clearing, the moon shining brightly above us, illuminating a weathered stone bench that seemed out of place amidst the wilderness. It was here that the whispers grew louder, coiling around us like an invisible fog. "Roxanne." The voice now had a distinct urgency, as if the presence behind it was desperate. "Help me remember." "Remember what?" I shouted into the night, my voice filled with a mix of fear and determination. "Who are you?" Lydia stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the bench, as if it held some unspoken significance. Sometimes, things are buried beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed. The past has a way of calling out, even when we're not ready to listen. Suddenly, the air shifted, and I felt a rush of memories wash over me. Fragments of laughter, echoes of long-lost voices, and flashes of faces I didn't recognize. I staggered back, overwhelmed by the intensity of it all. "Roxanne." Lydia's voice broke through the haze, grounding me. "Focus. This is just the beginning." I nodded, trying to shake off the disorientation. "What do we do?" "Touch the bench," she instructed, her tone steady. "Feel the energy that flows through it. Let it guide you." I hesitated, uncertainty creeping back in. But as I looked at Lydia, I saw an unwavering confidence in her eyes that inspired me. Taking a deep breath, I approached the bench and placed my hands on its cold surface. Instantly, a jolt of energy surged through me, like a current of electricity. Visions flooded my mind. A flickering candle in a darkened room, a child's laughter ringing out like a bell, and a shadowy figure whispering words I could not decipher. I gasped, the overwhelming sensations causing my heart to race. "Roxanne," Lydia called, her voice a lifeline in the tumult. "You have to stay with me. Focus on the whispers. Help me, find me." The voice echoed again, now more insistent. and as I closed my eyes, I felt myself drawn into the depths of the memory. Images began to crystallize, revealing a small room filled with toys and scattered books. A young girl with bright eyes played alone, her laughter echoing off the walls. But there was a sadness in the air, a sense of longing that permeated the space. Who was she? I breathed, feeling a connection to the girl, an ache in my heart that I couldn't explain. She's lost, the voice whispered, filling me with an overwhelming sense of urgency. Find her, bring her back. Bring her back from where? I cried out, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on me. What happened to her? But before I could process the visions further, they began to fade, like smoke dissipating in the wind. I stumbled back from the bench, gasping for breath as the world around me shifted back to reality. The whispers receded, leaving a haunting silence in their wake. Roxanne, what did you see? Lydia asked, concern etched on her face. I saw her. I replied, my voice trembling. A girl she was playing, but she looked so lonely. There was something wrong. Do you know where she is? Lydia's eyes were intense, urging me to dig deeper into the remnants of the vision. I don't know, I admitted, frustration building within me. But she needs help. I could feel it. Then we have to find her, Lydia said decisively, her confidence igniting a flicker of hope within me. There's more to this story, and I believe it's tied to the past. As the gravity of our mission sank in, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the path ahead. We had only scratched the surface of the mystery that surrounded us, and I knew that the echoes of the past were calling me to uncover the truth. The girl's fate, and my own, seemed inextricably linked, and I felt a strange compulsion to pursue this dark journey. Let's do it, I said, determination washing over me. Let's find her. With a shared glance of resolve, we set off into the night, guided by the whispers that still lingered in the air, ready to uncover the chilling secrets that awaited us. The night air was thick with anticipation as Lydia and I made our way back toward the winding trails of the park. The moonlight shimmered through the trees, casting an ethereal glow that danced on the ground, illuminating our path. Each step felt charged with purpose, as if the universe itself was urging us forward. Where do we even begin? I asked, my thoughts racing. The vision of the girl still flickered in my mind. Her laughter, her isolation, everything felt so vivid yet unattainable. Lydia paused, her brow furrowed in thought. The bench, it might be a starting point, but we need to gather more information. Maybe we can ask around the neighborhood or check local records. I nodded, feeling a mixture of determination and apprehension. The thought of delving into the unknown was daunting, but the girl's plea echoed in my mind, spurring me on. Do you think anyone has seen her? I mean, if she's missing? It's possible, Lydia replied, her voice steady. But we need to approach this delicately. People don't always take kindly to stories of lost children, especially when they've been gone for a long time. As we emerged from the park and stepped into the dimly lit streets of the neighborhood, the comforting familiarity of the area was now tinged with an unsettling aura. Houses stood solemnly in the night, their windows dark and lifeless. It was as if the entire neighborhood was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. We decided to start at the small local library just a few blocks away. It was a quaint building with weathered bricks and ivy climbing its walls, a stark contrast to the ominous feeling settling in my stomach. I pushed the heavy door open, and the familiar scent of aged paper and ink enveloped us. Inside, the library was empty except for a solitary librarian sitting behind the front desk, her glasses perched on the tip of her nose. Lydia approached her, the confidence in her posture evident as she inquired, "Excuse me, do you have any records or information about missing children in this area?" The librarian looked up, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "Why do you ask?" "We've been hearing some strange things," Lydia replied, her voice steady yet gentle. "There may be a connection to a young girl who used to live nearby. We just want to know if there are any records of her disappearance." The librarian's demeanor shifted, a flicker of recognition passing across her face. "You might be referring to the Wilson family. They lived on Maple Street, just a few blocks from here. Their daughter, Lily, went missing several years ago. It was a tragic case that shook the whole community. My heart raced at the mention of the name. Lily, I whispered, feeling the weight of the name settle on my chest like a stone. What happened to her? The librarian sighed, her expression clouded with sadness. It was a stormy night. She vanished without a trace, and despite extensive searches, no one ever found her. The family was devastated, and they moved away shortly after. It's a story that haunts this neighborhood. Lydia exchanged a glance with me, the pieces beginning to align in our minds. Do you have any information on the family or what they went through? She asked, leaning forward. The librarian rummaged through a stack of papers and pulled out an old newspaper clipping. This was the article from the day she went missing. She handed it to Lydia, who studied it intently. The article detailed Lily's disappearance, describing her as a bright and lively girl who loved to play in the park. It included a photograph of her, bright eyes and a smile that lit up the page. The resemblance to the girl from my vision was uncanny. Where did the family go? I asked, desperate for more answers. The Wilsons moved to another state after a few years. I don't think they ever recovered from the loss, the librarian said softly. It's a wound that never healed. Lydia nodded, her expression serious. Thank you for your help. We'll look into this further. As we left the library, the weight of our discovery settled heavily on my shoulders. We need to find Lily, I said, determination swelling within me. There has to be a way to uncover what happened to her. Lydia agreed, and we decided to head to Maple Street, hoping to find any remaining traces of the Wilson family or answers hidden in the shadows. As we walked, the cool night air brushed against my skin, invigorating yet chilling. When we reached Maple Street, the atmosphere felt different, charged with memories and untold stories. The houses were modest but well kept, each one hiding secrets within their walls. We approached the last house on the street, a faded blue cottage with a small garden, its paint peeling and windows dark. This must be it, Lydia whispered, glancing at the overgrown garden. Let's see if anyone is home. We knocked gently on the door, the sound echoing into the stillness. After a moment, it creaked open to reveal an elderly woman with silver hair and weary eyes. Yes, she asked, her voice trembling slightly. We're looking for information about the Wilson family, Lydia said carefully. We heard their daughter, Lily, went missing years ago. The woman's expression shifted, a wave of sorrow washing over her features. Lily, she breathed, a tear escaping her eye. That poor girl, she was such a light. Do you know what happened to her? I asked, my heart pounding. We're trying to piece together her story. The woman stepped back, motioning for us to enter. Come inside. It's time someone told you the truth. As we crossed the threshold, a sense of foreboding washed over me. The walls were adorned with photographs, families, smiling faces, and a little girl with a radiant smile. But beneath the surface, I felt the heaviness of loss permeating the air, suffocating and tangible. Sit down, the woman said, gesturing to an old sofa covered in a knitted blanket. She settled into a chair across from us, her gaze distant. It's a story that has been buried for far too long. As she began to speak, the room seemed to shrink around us, the past creeping back to life with every word. I felt the weight of Lily's story settling over me, intertwining with my own destiny in ways I had yet to comprehend. The elderly woman, whose name we learned was Mrs. Hargrove, looked at us with a mixture of sorrow and determination. Lily was the brightest light in our little community, she began, her voice thick with emotion. Everyone loved her. She had a way of making even the darkest days feel a little brighter. As she spoke, I could see the memories playing across her face, illuminated by the nostalgia of a time long past. But one stormy night, everything changed. Lily had gone to play in the park, just like she always did. It was getting dark, and a storm was brewing. Her mother called for her, but she never came home. Lydia leaned forward, her eyes wide with empathy. Did anyone see her after she left the house? Mrs. Hargrove shook her head, her voice trembling. No one saw her leave the park. The police searched everywhere, but it was as if she had vanished into thin air. They found her favorite toy near the swings, but that was it. Days turned into weeks, then months, and the search faded. The family never recovered. They left as soon as they could, trying to escape the memories that haunted them. My heart ached at the thought of Lily's family, shattered and broken by the loss. But what happened to her? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. Do you think she's still out there? Mrs. Hargrove hesitated, her eyes clouding with uncertainty. There were whispers, rumors in the community. Some said they saw a shadowy figure in the woods near the park on that night. Others claimed they heard a girl's laughter echoing through the trees, but no one dared to investigate. Fear kept everyone silent. A shiver ran down my spine. The shadowy figure, the laughter, it all sounded eerily familiar. Could it be that she's still here, somehow? I murmured, almost to myself. Mrs. Hargrove looked at me with a penetrating gaze. There are stories, old tales passed down through generations. Some believe that children who go missing can remain trapped between worlds. They linger, seeking help, searching for closure. Lydia exchanged a glance with me, a spark of realization igniting in her eyes. Do you think Lily could be trying to reach out to someone? She asked softly. I do, Mrs. Hargrove replied, her voice resolute. I believe she wants to be found, to let her family know she's still here, watching over them. A silence fell over the room, heavy with unspoken emotions. I felt a rush of determination surge through me. We have to help her, I said, my voice firm. We have to find out what happened that night. Mrs. Hargrove nodded, her expression filled with understanding. You're brave to take on such a task. Many have tried and failed, but if you truly believe, you might just succeed. Where do we start? I asked, my heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. There's a clearing in the woods behind the park. It's said to be a place where lost things are found, she explained, her eyes distant as if recalling something from long ago. If you go there, you might be able to connect with her spirit. Lydia looked at me, determination reflecting in her eyes. We need to go tonight, she said, the urgency in her tone palpable. It's the perfect time, dark enough for the magic to happen. With Mrs. Hargrove's blessing, we left her home, stepping back into the cool night air. The sky was starless, shrouded in an oppressive darkness that felt suffocating. Are we really going to do this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper as we made our way to the park. Lydia squeezed my hand, a reassuring gesture. We have to try. For Lily. The park was eerily quiet as we approached the entrance. The swing swayed slightly in the breeze, and the trees loomed like silent sentinels. We crossed the threshold, the familiar path, now feeling foreign and ominous. There's the clearing, Lydia said, pointing ahead where the trees parted, revealing a small, open space. As we stepped into the clearing, I felt an electric charge in the air, as if something was waiting for us. The moonlight spilled down, illuminating the ground in a soft glow. We stood still for a moment, absorbing the atmosphere, my heart pounding in my chest. What do we do now? I asked, scanning the area for any signs of Lily. We should call out to her, Lydia suggested, her voice steady. Let her know we're here to help. Taking a deep breath, I closed my eyes and focused on the energy around us. Lily, I called, my voice echoing in the stillness. We're here for you. We want to help you find peace. The wind rustled through the trees, sending a chill down my spine. I felt a shift in the air, a presence drawing closer, but it was both comforting and unsettling. Lily, if you can hear us, please show yourself, Lydia added, her voice stronger, filled with conviction. In that moment, the clearing grew colder, the temperature dropping significantly as a soft whisper floated through the air, almost like a distant melody. I opened my eyes, scanning the surroundings. Shadows flickered at the edges of the clearing, moving just out of sight. Did you hear that? I asked, my heart racing. Lydia nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. It's her. She's here. Suddenly, the air crackled with energy, and the shadows began to take form. A soft glow emerged from the center of the clearing, illuminating a figure. It was a girl, no older than 10, with bright eyes and a soft smile, a vision of Lily. Help me, she whispered, her voice a soft breeze that wrapped around us. Lily, I cried out, stepping closer. We're here to help you. The figure began to fade, the glow flickering like a candle in the wind. "You must find the truth," she urged, her voice echoing in the night. "I'm trapped between worlds." Before I could respond, the light extinguished, leaving us in darkness once more. "What just happened?" I gasped, my heart racing. Lydia grabbed my hand, her grip firm. "We need to find out what happened to her that night. She's counting on us." As we stood in the clearing, the weight of our mission settled heavily on our shoulders. We had seen Lily, felt her presence, but the journey to uncover the truth was just beginning. With the memory of Lily's ethereal presence still fresh in my mind, I felt a new determination course through me. We had glimpsed her. Now we needed to understand what had happened that fateful night so long ago. The clearing felt charged with potential, and I knew that we couldn't turn back now. "We need to investigate what happened in the park the night Lily went missing," I said, looking at Lydia. "There might be clues hidden in the memories of those who were there that night." "Right," she agreed, her expression serious. "But who do we talk to? The families who were here back then? The police reports? We need to gather every piece of information we can find." I nodded, my mind racing. "Let's start with the police station. They might still have records from that night." The walk to the station felt longer than usual, the shadows stretching and warping around us, making the familiar path feel eerie. It was late, but a flickering street lamp illuminated the entrance of the old brick building, its worn facade whispering secrets of the past. Once inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged paper and strong coffee. A receptionist sat behind a desk, her tired eyes meeting ours. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone professional yet weary. "Yes, we're looking for information on a missing person case from years ago," I explained, trying to sound confident despite the unease in my stomach. Her name was Lily Moore. The receptionist's expression shifted slightly, recognition flickering in her eyes. "That case," she began, glancing down at her paperwork. "It was a tragic one. The department has records, but I'll need to check if they're accessible." "Please, we need to know what happened," Lydia urged. "Lily is still out there, and we think she's trying to reach out to us." The receptionist raised an eyebrow, skepticism evident in her expression, but she motioned for us to wait. After a few minutes, she returned with a folder, her expression softened slightly. "I'll let you take a look at these, but you must understand they may be disturbing." With a grateful nod, I took the folder from her, feeling a mix of dread and anticipation. We found a small table in a corner and spread the papers out before us. The documents detailed the initial report from Lily's disappearance, a timeline of events, and interviews with witnesses. "Here," I said, pointing to a section. "It says she was last seen at the swings around 7 p.m. Lydia leaned closer, her finger tracing the lines. "And it mentions a storm approaching. It's the same storm we felt tonight." I felt a chill run down my spine. Maybe the weather had something to do with it. I mused, turning the page. "Oh, look here. There's a mention of someone who reported seeing a shadowy figure lurking near the park entrance that evening." "Who was it?" Lydia asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "A man named Frank Miller," I read aloud. "He was walking his dog and claimed he saw a girl, Lily, followed by someone else. He described the figure as tall and wearing a dark coat, but when he approached, the girl had vanished. What if that figure was someone trying to take her?" Lydia speculated, her brow furrowing in concern. I turned the page again, searching for more information. There's a list of people interviewed, but wait. My finger stopped at a name. "Look, there's a note here that says the investigation was inconclusive. No suspects were ever identified and the case went cold." Frustration surged within me. How could they let this happen? They should have done more. Lydia placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "We'll do more. We'll find out what happened to her. Maybe we can find Frank Miller. Right? He might still live around here." I scanned the documents, searching for any leads. It says here he was a local resident. We can check the records to see if he's still in town. After jotting down the address listed for Frank Miller, we made our way out of the station, the weight of the folder heavy in my hands. Each piece of information added to the urgency of our mission. The night air was thick with anticipation as we walked towards the address I'd written down. The neighborhood was quiet, the only sounds being the rustling of leaves and the occasional chirp of a distant cricket. It felt surreal, like a scene from a movie, as if we were embarking on a quest to uncover long-buried secrets. "Do you think he'll remember anything?" Lydia asked, her tone contemplative. "He has to," I replied, determination fueling my words. "He was one of the last people to see her. He might even feel guilty for not doing more." When we reached the house, a modest one-story with peeling paint and an overgrown yard, I felt my heart quicken. I approached the door, taking a deep breath before knocking. The sound echoed ominously in the stillness. After a few moments, an older man opened the door, his hair graying and his eyes wary. "Can I help you?" he asked, eyeing us curiously. "Mr. Miller?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're here about Lily Moore. We were hoping you could share what you remember about that night." His expression shifted, a shadow passing over his features. "That case, it's been years. I don't think there's much I can add." "Please," Lydia urged, stepping forward. "Anything you remember could help us. We think she's still here, that she's trying to reach out to us." For a moment, Mr. Miller hesitated, as if wrestling with the weight of memories he had buried. Finally, he sighed, stepping aside to let us in. "Fine, come in." As we entered, the air felt heavy with unspoken truths. The walls were lined with photographs of family and friends, a stark contrast to the somber atmosphere. Mr. Miller led us to a small living room, where he gestured for us to sit. "I didn't want to think about that night," he began, his voice low and strained. "I felt helpless, and guilt has haunted me since." "Please, just tell us what you saw," I urged gently, leaning in. "I saw Lily," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "But I also saw someone else, a man in a dark coat, lurking just beyond the trees. I should have done something, but when I tried to approach, the man disappeared, and Lily was gone." "Did you recognize him?" Lydia asked, her eyes searching his. "No," Mr. Miller replied, shaking his head. "But he gave me the creeps. I never saw him around before that night. I think he took her." My heart raced at his words, a mix of hope and fear swirling within me. "We need to know what else you remember. Anything could help us." Mr. Miller took a deep breath, his gaze distant as he tried to piece together his memories. "I remember the storm. It was loud, and the wind was howling. It drowned out all other sounds. I didn't hear anything unusual until I saw Lily. She was just playing on the swings, laughing. Then the darkness came." Suddenly, he froze, a look of horror crossing his face. There was something else, a sound, like a low whisper carried by the wind. I thought it was just the storm at first, but now, I wonder if it was her calling for help. Lydia and I exchanged worried glances, a chilling realization settling in. "Do you think she was trying to reach out to you?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Mr. Miller looked at us with haunted eyes. "I don't know. I wish I had acted sooner." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the past pressing down on us. "We're trying to help her," I finally said. "We believe she wants to be found." With a mixture of sorrow and resolve, Mr. Miller nodded. "If there's any way I can help, please let me know. I owe it to her." "Thank you," I replied, my heart full of gratitude. "We'll figure this out." As we left the house, the reality of what we had learned settled in. We had taken another step closer to uncovering the truth about Lily's disappearance, but I could feel the weight of the mystery deepening. The shadows in the woods still held secrets, and we were determined to find them. As we stepped back into the cool night air, the weight of Mr. Miller's words hung heavily on our hearts. The shadows around us seemed to shift and swirl, carrying the whispers of the past with them. The storm clouds lingered ominously overhead, hinting that another tempest might be on its way. "We need to go back to the park," I said, urgency coloring my tone. "If Lily was trying to call for help, we might find something, anything, that could lead us to her." Lydia nodded, determination etched on her face. "Let's do it. We can't leave any stone unturned." The path to the park felt different this time, almost charged with energy as we moved under the flickering streetlights. The moon peeked through the clouds, casting a silvery glow that illuminated our way. Despite the darkness surrounding us, I felt a sense of purpose driving us forward. When we reached the park entrance, a familiar chill coursed through me, bringing back memories of the first time we ventured into the woods. The swing set stood eerily silent under the moonlight, swaying slightly as if beckoning us closer. I could almost hear the echoes of laughter from the past, intertwined with a sorrowful melody. "Let's start at the swings," Lydia suggested, her voice low but steady. "Maybe we can sense something, or maybe there are still signs of what happened." We approached the swings cautiously, the creaking chains seeming to whisper secrets of long-lost joy. I reached out to touch one of the swings, and a shiver ran down my spine as the cool metal sent a jolt of energy through my fingers. "I feel it," Lydia murmured, her eyes scanning the surroundings. "There's something here, something we're meant to discover." Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the park, rustling the leaves and sending a shiver down my spine. I turned my head instinctively, catching a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. "Did you see that?" I asked, my heart racing. Lydia's gaze followed mine, and her expression turned serious. "What was it?" "I'm not sure," I replied, trying to shake off the feeling of dread creeping up on me. "It looked like someone was moving deeper into the woods." "We should follow," she urged, her excitement evident. "If it's Lily or even someone who knows what happened to her, we can't let this chance slip away." With a nod, we stepped off the beaten path, venturing into the thick underbrush. The trees loomed around us like ancient sentinels, their branches stretching out like skeletal fingers. The air felt heavier here, laden with an oppressive silence that made every sound feel amplified. "Stay close," I whispered, my instincts on high alert. Each snap of a twig beneath our feet sounded deafening in the quiet night. I could feel the presence of the woods, as if they were alive and aware of our search. As we moved deeper into the forest, the moonlight struggled to penetrate the thick canopy above us. Shadows danced around us, shifting with the wind as if the trees themselves were watching. I could feel my heart pounding, a mix of fear and anticipation urging me onward. After what felt like an eternity of searching, we stumbled upon a small clearing. The ground was disturbed, as if something had been recently unearthed. I crouched down to examine the area, brushing away fallen leaves and twigs to reveal what lay beneath. "Look!" Lydia exclaimed, kneeling beside me. "There's something here." As we cleared the debris, our breath caught in our throats. Buried beneath the leaves was a small, weathered wooden box, its edges frayed and stained with time. My hands trembled as I carefully pried it from the earth, the sensation of discovery sending a thrill through me. "What do you think it is?" Lydia asked, her voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I don't know," I admitted, my heart racing as I examined the box. "But it looks important." With a gentle tug, I opened the lid. Inside, I found a collection of trinkets, a small porcelain doll, a faded photograph of a girl that looked strikingly like Lily, and a delicate locket. I lifted the locket, feeling its cool metal against my skin. "Open it," Lydia urged, her eyes wide with curiosity. I hesitated for a moment, then carefully pried it open. Inside, I found a tiny portrait of a woman, her features delicate and familiar. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized her. It was Lily's mother, who had been lost in the same tragedy. "Do you think this belonged to Lily?" Lydia whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "It has to be," I replied, feeling the weight of history in my hands. This must have been hers, a keepsake she cherished. As we sifted through the contents, a chill swept through the clearing, making the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. The air crackled with energy, and I felt an overwhelming sense of presence surrounding us. It was as if Lily herself was drawing nearer, urging us to understand. Suddenly, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves and sending a flurry of whispers through the trees. "We need to get out of here," I said, instinctively pulling Lydia back. "I don't think we're alone." As we backed away from the clearing, I felt a compulsion to look back one last time. In that fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of a shadow darting between the trees, its form indistinct yet undeniably present. "Did you see that?" I gasped, heart racing. Lydia nodded, eyes wide with fear. "We need to leave now. It feels wrong here." We turned and ran, the adrenaline propelling us back toward the park entrance. The shadows seemed to reach for us, but we pushed through, desperate to escape the eerie sensation of being watched. Each footfall echoed in the stillness, the darkness closing in around us. As we finally burst through the trees and into the open space of the park, I felt a rush of relief wash over me. The air felt lighter, and the familiar sounds of the night enveloped us like a warm embrace. "That was too close," Lydia said, her voice shaky. "What just happened?" "I don't know," I replied, clutching the wooden box tightly in my hands. "But I think we're onto something. We have to keep going. Whatever we found tonight, it has to lead us to Lily," Lydia said resolutely. With determination renewed, we knew that our quest was far from over. We would unravel the secrets hidden in the shadows, no matter how dark or unsettling the journey might become. The cool night air felt refreshing against my flushed skin as we stood at the edge of the park, still catching our breath from our frantic escape. The wooden box weighed heavily in my hands, each moment increasing my anticipation and anxiety. What secrets did it hold? What truths about Lily and her disappearance were buried alongside the keepsakes? "We need to find somewhere safe to look through this," I said, glancing around to ensure no one was watching us. The shadows of the trees were dense, but the park's lampposts cast a reassuring glow that felt comforting. Lydia nodded, her eyes bright with a mix of fear and determination. "Let's head to my house. My parents are out for the night, and we'll have the place to ourselves." Without wasting another moment, we hurried to her home, weaving through the familiar streets that had once felt so safe. The rhythmic sound of our footsteps echoed against the pavement, but tonight, it felt as if the entire world was holding its breath. As we entered Lydia's house, I locked the door behind us, the click of the lock resonating in the silence. The living room was dimly lit, and the shadows danced on the walls like ghostly figures. I could feel a tension building in the air, a sense that we were stepping into something far greater than ourselves. "Let's go to my room," Lydia suggested, leading the way up the narrow staircase. The familiar scent of her home surrounded us, yet an unsettling aura lingered, as if the house itself knew we were harboring secrets. Once inside her room, we settled on the floor, the box resting between us like a treasure chest waiting to be opened. The walls were adorned with posters of our favorite bands and memories of simpler times, a stark contrast to the gravity of the situation we faced. "Are you ready?" Lydia asked, her voice steady despite the nerves radiating off her. I took a deep breath, nodding. "Let's see what's inside." With careful hands, I lifted the lid of the wooden box, revealing the contents bathed in the soft glow of the lamp. The porcelain doll was the first thing to catch my eye, its glassy eyes staring back at me. I picked it up gingerly, brushing dust off its dress. It felt heavy with memories. Perhaps it was a gift from a loved one, a remnant of childhood innocence. Next, I pulled out the faded photograph. It was worn at the edges, but the image was unmistakable. The girl in the photo had bright eyes and a joyful smile, and I felt a pang of sadness knowing how her life had changed. I turned it toward Lydia, who gasped softly as she recognized Lily's features. "Look at the date on the back," she said, gently taking the photograph from my hands. I flipped it over, revealing an inscription in delicate handwriting. "Lily, my shining star, always loved. 2013. "Wow," I whispered, feeling the weight of the words. This must have been taken shortly before. Everything changed. Finally, I reached for the locket. It was intricately designed, with delicate patterns etched into the metal. My fingers trembled as I opened it again, revealing the tiny portrait of Lily's mother. "She looks so kind," I said, glancing at Lydia, who was lost in thought. "Maybe the locket was meant to be a family heirloom," she suggested. "Something that was passed down to Lily. It could hold clues about her past." As I continued to examine the items, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were a piece of a much larger puzzle. "Do you think these items were buried here for a reason?" I asked, my voice low. "It's possible," Lydia replied, frowning. "Maybe Lily knew something. Maybe she was trying to send us a message." A sudden thought struck me. What if she was trying to warn us? I said, my heart racing. What if she found something she wasn't supposed to? Lydia's eyes widened. "You mean like she uncovered something dangerous? Something someone wanted to keep hidden?" "It's worth considering," I said, feeling the gravity of the situation. "We need to investigate further. There must be more to this story." Lydia nodded, determination resurfacing in her expression. "We can start by talking to Mr. Miller again. He seemed to know more than he let on." With a plan in place, we carefully repacked the items into the box, making sure to handle them gently, as if they were fragile relics of the past. "Before we go, let's write down everything we found," I suggested. "We need to keep track of our discoveries." Lydia grabbed a notepad and a pen from her desk, and together we jotted down the details of each item. As we wrote, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were venturing into unknown territory, where the past and present intertwined, hiding secrets that could change everything. Once we finished, we locked the box away in our nightstand, making a pact to keep it safe until we had answers. "Are you ready for this?" Lydia asked, a hint of nervousness creeping into her voice as we headed back down the stairs. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the importance of our mission. We have to be brave, for Lily. As we stepped back into the night, the weight of our quest felt heavier than ever. The shadows loomed around us, but we were determined to uncover the truth. No matter where it led, we would face whatever came next together. The cool night air wrapped around us like a cloak as we stepped back outside, the familiar sounds of the neighborhood enveloping us. Streetlights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced in the corners of my vision. Lydia and I walked briskly, our hearts pounding with the weight of our discoveries. "What do you think Mr. Miller will say?" I asked, breaking the tense silence that had settled between us. "I don't know," Lydia replied, her brow furrowed in thought. "But I get the feeling he knows more than he's telling. Maybe he's been protecting something, or someone." As we approached the old bookstore, its dim lights glowing softly against the encroaching darkness, my mind raced with possibilities. The quaint little shop had always felt like a sanctuary, a place filled with stories waiting to be told. But tonight, it felt different, charged with a sense of urgency. The bell above the door chimed softly as we entered, and the warm scent of aged paper enveloped us. Mr. Miller was behind the counter, his silver hair catching the light as he looked up from the book he was reading. "Ah, there you are," he said, his eyes sparkling with a hint of recognition. "I was wondering when you two would return." "Mr. Miller, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the butterflies in my stomach. "About Lily." His expression shifted, the warmth fading slightly as he leaned back in his chair. "What about her?" "We found some things that belonged to her," Lydia said, her tone urgent. "A box with a doll, a photograph, and a locket. They all seemed important, and we think they might hold clues to what happened." Mr. Miller's gaze grew serious as he motioned for us to sit. "You two should be careful," he cautioned, glancing around the store as if ensuring no one else could hear. "There are things in this world that are better left undiscovered." "Please," I pressed, leaning forward. "We need to know the truth. What happened to Lily? Did she uncover something she wasn't supposed to?" He sighed deeply, rubbing his temples as if grappling with a painful memory. "Lily was special. She had a knack for finding things others wanted to remain hidden. That locket you found, it belonged to her mother. There are whispers about what happened to her family." "What kind of whispers?" Lydia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's a history here," Mr. Miller continued, his eyes distant. "The town has its secrets, dark ones. There were stories of a group, people who believed they could harness the power of forgotten memories. They were dangerous, and when Lily began to ask questions, I fear she stumbled into their world." My heart raced at his words. "What do you mean? What happened to those people?" "Some vanished without a trace," he replied gravely. "Others were never the same again. Lily was different, though. She had a light in her that attracted both good and evil. I tried to protect her, but it wasn't enough." Lydia's eyes filled with emotion. "So, you knew something was wrong? You could have warned us." "I did what I could," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "But the truth is, I thought she was safe. She was strong-willed, always curious. I never imagined she would dig too deep." "Is that why you didn't tell us everything?" I pressed. "Because you thought we'd be in danger?" Mr. Miller looked down, the weight of his choices hanging in the air. "It was a risk I had to take. I thought if I didn't involve you, you might stay safe. But I see now that ignorance can be just as dangerous." "Then help us," Lydia urged. "We need to know what we're up against." Mr. Miller hesitated, glancing out the window, as if expecting someone to emerge from the shadows. "There's a place," he finally said, his voice low. "A hidden area in the woods where the group used to gather. If Lily was involved with them, that's where you might find answers. But be warned, it's not a place for the faint of heart." "What do you mean?" I asked, feeling a chill run down my spine. "There are rumors," he replied, his gaze piercing through me, "of spirits, echoes of the past that linger in those woods. You may encounter things that defy explanation. It's a dangerous road, but if you truly wish to uncover the truth, you must go." I felt a mix of determination and trepidation. "We'll go," I declared, my voice stronger than I felt. "We have to know what happened to Lily. We owe it to her." Mr. Miller nodded solemnly. "Then you must prepare yourselves. The truth may be more terrifying than you can imagine. Trust your instincts, and whatever you do, don't stray from the path." As we left the bookstore, the weight of our decision pressed down on us. The streets felt eerily quiet, the shadows deeper and more menacing. I glanced at Lydia, who was staring ahead, lost in thought. "Are you ready for this?" I asked, concern lacing my voice. She turned to me, a spark of defiance in her eyes. "I have to be, for Lily." Together, we made our way back home, the urgency of our mission propelling us forward. The unknown awaited us in the woods, and I knew that whatever awaited us there would change everything. The next morning arrived with a blanket of gray clouds, casting a gloomy shadow over the town. As I prepared to venture into the woods with Lydia, an unsettling feeling settled in my stomach. The air felt heavy with anticipation, and I couldn't shake the thought of what lay ahead. After a hurried breakfast, we gathered our supplies: flashlights, a map, and the items we had discovered: Lily's locket, the photograph, and the doll. Each item felt like a piece of a puzzle, leading us deeper into a mystery that had haunted us for far too long. We drove to the edge of the woods, where the towering trees loomed like sentinels, their branches reaching out as if to warn us not to proceed. As we parked the car, a sense of dread washed over me, but I took a deep breath, reminding myself why we were there. "We'll stick together," I said, trying to bolster my own confidence. "No matter what happens, we don't split up." "Agreed," Lydia replied, her voice firm. She looked resolute, and I admired her bravery. With one last glance at the road behind us, we stepped into the dark embrace of the woods. The path was narrow and winding, littered with leaves and twigs that crunched beneath our feet. The further we walked, the more the sunlight faded, leaving us surrounded by shadows. I turned on my flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness, revealing gnarled roots and thick underbrush. "Mr. Miller said the gathering place would be deeper in," I said, trying to break the silence that enveloped us. "We should keep an eye out for anything unusual." Lydia nodded, her expression serious. "This feels different, like the trees are watching us." We pressed on, the atmosphere thickening with each step. An eerie silence surrounded us, broken only by the rustling of leaves and distant bird calls. After what felt like hours of walking, we stumbled upon a clearing. In its center stood an old, dilapidated cabin, partially hidden by the overgrown vegetation. "There it is," I whispered, my heart racing. As we approached, the cabin loomed larger, its rotting wooden beams and cracked windows giving it an ominous presence. The door hung slightly ajar, creaking softly as the wind blew. "Should we go in?" Lydia asked, hesitating at the threshold. "Together," I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. We stepped inside, the air stale and thick with dust. Sunlight filtered through the cracks, illuminating particles that danced like tiny specters in the air. The interior was cluttered with old furniture and forgotten memories. A broken chair lay on its side, and a dusty table was covered in layers of grime. I noticed symbols etched into the walls, markings that sent shivers down my spine. "This must have been a meeting place," I said, tracing one of the symbols with my fingers. Lydia stepped closer to a corner of the room, where a makeshift altar stood, adorned with trinkets and items that looked eerily familiar. "Look at this," she breathed, pointing to a small wooden box. "It's just like the one we found with Lily's stuff." I knelt down, my heart pounding as I reach for the box. Do you think it's connected? Only one way to find out, Lydia said, watching me with wide eyes. I opened the box, revealing a collection of old photographs and faded letters. As I sifted through the contents, a photo slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the ground. I picked it up, my breath catching in my throat. It's Lily, I whispered, recognizing her instantly. She stood with a group of people, faces blurred and shadowy, but the look on her face was one of joy mixed with an unsettling energy. In the background, a figure stood partially obscured, shrouded in darkness. Who are they? Lydia asked, peering over my shoulder. What were they doing? As I flipped through the other photographs, a chilling realization struck me. The same figures appeared in multiple images, their expressions more haunting each time. In one, they were gathered around a fire, chanting, their faces twisted in expressions of fervor and desperation. Lily was involved with them, I said, my voice shaking. She was drawn into whatever this is. Suddenly, a noise echoed from outside, the sound of footsteps crunching on leaves. My heart raced as I exchanged a fearful glance with Lydia. Did you hear that? I whispered, my senses heightened. Yeah, she replied, her eyes darting to the door. We need to hide. Now! We scrambled behind a tattered curtain, pressing ourselves against the wall, our breath shallow. I could hear the footsteps drawing closer, muffled voices murmuring, just outside. Panic coursed through my veins as the door creaked open, and a shadow fell across the threshold. Lily, a voice called softly, sending a chill down my spine. Where are you? My heart dropped as I recognized the voice, soft yet laced with an unsettling familiarity. The figure stepped inside, their silhouette dark against the light. It was a woman, her face hidden in the shadows, but the tone of her voice was hauntingly reminiscent of Lily. Please come out, the woman urged, her voice echoing in the silence. We just want to help you. What should we do? Lydia whispered urgently, her grip tightening on my arm. Wait, I breathed, my heart racing. We need to see who she is. The woman stepped further inside, revealing a long, flowing dress that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. As she moved, her hair cascaded around her shoulders, but I couldn't make out her features clearly. Lily, she called again, her voice tinged with desperation. I'm here to bring you home. You don't belong to them. My breath hitched in my throat. Was this really Lily? Had she somehow returned? The urge to reveal ourselves surged within me, but I held back, unsure of the woman's true intentions. Suddenly, she turned sharply, and for a fleeting moment, the light caught her face. My heart sank. It wasn't Lily. It was a woman I didn't recognize, but the resemblance was uncanny. Who are you? I finally called out, stepping forward despite Lydia's warning tug on my sleeve. The woman froze, her gaze locking onto mine. You shouldn't be here, she warned, her voice dropping to a whisper. They're watching. You have to leave. Who's watching? Lydia asked, her voice steady despite her fear. The group, she replied, urgency lacing her tone. They know you're here. They won't let you leave. What do you mean? I demanded, my heart racing. Why should we trust you? Because I was like you, she said, taking a cautious step closer. I was drawn into this world too. They took everything from me, and now they want you. Her words hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and foreboding. What do we do? I asked, fear coursing through me. You have to confront them, she urged, desperation in her eyes. You need to find the truth before they find you. Before I could respond, the ground beneath us trembled as a loud crash echoed through the cabin. The door burst open, and a group of shadowy figures stormed inside, their intentions clear. Get out, I shouted, adrenaline surging through me. Lydia and I grabbed the woman's hand, and we bolted toward the back door just as they advanced. The air crackled with tension, our hearts pounding in unison as we raced into the woods, leaving the chilling truth behind us. Don't forget to subscribe in the channel and like the video for more contents. It was a typical Tuesday morning when I first spotted the package resting on my doorstep. The sun streamed through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground, and birds chirped cheerfully as I approached my front door. I had just returned from my morning run, still clad in my workout clothes, with a bead of sweat glistening on my forehead. The package was nondescript, wrapped in plain brown paper, with no return address or identifying marks. My curiosity was piqued. It felt unusually heavy for its size, and I couldn't recall ordering anything that might have been delivered. As I reached down to pick it up, a chill ran down my spine, a sense of foreboding washing over me. I glanced around the neighborhood, half expecting to see someone watching from the shadows, but the street was empty. The silence felt almost oppressive, the kind of silence that hangs in the air just before something unexpected happens. I shrugged off the feeling and carried the package inside, shutting the door firmly behind me. Once inside, I placed the package on my kitchen table, its presence dominating the small space. I stood there for a moment, my heart racing with anticipation and a hint of anxiety. What was inside? I grabbed a pair of scissors from a nearby drawer, hesitating briefly before I cut through the tape securing the package. As I peeled back the layers of paper, a chill crept through my fingertips. The first thing I uncovered was a small, intricately carved wooden box. It was surprisingly ornate, with swirling patterns etched into the wood that caught the light beautifully. Beneath the box, there was a folded piece of parchment paper, yellowed with age. I opened the note, my heart pounding in my chest. The handwriting was neat but slightly shaky, as if written in haste. To whomever finds this package, heed my warning. The box holds secrets that should not be disturbed. It is a vessel of memories, and its power is not to be taken lightly. Do not open it. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I read the note. What could possibly be inside that warranted such a warning? My curiosity battled with an instinctive urge to leave the box untouched, but my intrigue won out. I reached for the small box, my fingers grazing the smooth surface. I carefully lifted the lid, my heart pounding as I opened it. Inside, nestled in a bed of dark velvet, was an assortment of items. A delicate silver locket, an old-fashioned key, a small glass vial filled with what looked like sand, and a faded photograph of a woman with piercing blue eyes. I picked up the locket first, its surface cool against my skin. As I opened it, I found a tiny portrait of a girl, perhaps 10 years old, with the same striking blue eyes as the woman in the photograph. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me as I stared into those eyes, wondering who she was and what story lay behind that image. The key was heavy and ornate, adorned with intricate designs that hinted at a history long forgotten. What could it possibly unlock? I set it aside and picked up the vial, turning it over in my hand. The sand inside shimmered as it caught the light, but I couldn't discern any particular significance. Finally, I examined the photograph more closely. The woman stared back at me, her expression somber, yet somehow familiar. There was something in her gaze that made me feel as if she was trying to tell me something, to reach out from beyond the confines of the photograph. Suddenly, I heard a loud knock at the door, jolting me from my reverie. My heart raced as I carefully set the box down and moved to the door. Who could it be? I peered through the peephole, my pulse quickening as I saw a figure standing on my porch. It was a man in a long trench coat, his hat pulled low over his face. He looked around nervously, as if expecting someone to come after him. My instincts kicked in. Something felt off about this situation. I took a step back from the door, debating whether I should open it or keep my distance. The knock came again, more urgent this time. "Please, I need to speak with you," the man called out, his voice low but intense. "It's about the package." I froze, my heart racing. How did he know about the package? What did he want from me? Taking a deep breath, I opened the door just a crack, my eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. "Who are you?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the rising fear in my chest. The man looked up at me, and I could see the desperation in his eyes. "I can't explain everything right now, but you need to listen to me. The items in that box, there are forces at play that you don't understand. You're in danger." I hesitated, uncertainty gnawing at me. "What do you mean?" I asked, glancing back at the box on the table, a sense of dread beginning to settle in. "Just trust me. We need to get out of here," he urged, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone to come charging down the street. I looked back at the box, then at the man. The decision weighed heavily on me. Was he telling the truth? Or was this some elaborate trick? But something in his eyes told me he was serious, and the urgency in his voice ignited a flicker of fear deep within me. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Give me a moment." I stepped back into the house, my heart racing as I grabbed my phone, my keys, and the wooden box. With the man still watching the street, I opened the front door wide and stepped outside, the cool air hitting my face like a splash of cold water. "Let's go," I said, my mind racing with questions. As we hurried down the path away from my house, I felt the weight of the strange package in my hands, a sense of foreboding looming overhead like a dark cloud. What secrets lay ahead, and what dangers were lurking in the shadows? I had no idea, but one thing was certain. My life was about to take a turn into the unknown. As we hurried down the street, the man in the trench coat glanced back frequently, scanning the surroundings with a palpable tension in his posture. I matched his pace, my heart pounding in my chest, the wooden box clutched tightly against my side. The morning sun had dimmed, obscured by a blanket of dark clouds rolling in, mirroring the storm brewing within me. "Who are you?" I finally asked, my curiosity overcoming my fear. "Why do you know about the package?" "I can't explain everything right now," he replied, his voice low and urgent. "But my name is Daniel. I've been tracking the box for a while now." "You're not safe with it." "Tracking it?" I questioned, incredulous. "Why?" Daniel stopped, turning to face me. "Listen, there are people who want that box and everything inside it. They believe it holds something powerful, and they won't stop until they get it." His words sent a chill down my spine. I thought of the locket, the key, and the photograph. What could possibly be so important about these seemingly ordinary items? "What's in it?" I pressed, desperate for answers. "I don't know the specifics," he admitted, glancing back down the street. "But I know it's tied to a lot of dark history. Families have been torn apart, lives have been lost, all because of what that box represents." We resumed walking, the urgency of our situation propelling us forward. My mind raced with questions, but I sensed now wasn't the time to dwell on them. "What do we do now?" I asked, the adrenaline coursing through me. "We need to get out of town," Daniel replied. "There's a safe place I know, but we have to move quickly." "Are you sure we're being followed?" I asked, glancing over my shoulder nervously. The street was empty, but I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were watching us from the shadows. "I can't be certain, but we need to act as if we are," he said, his voice grave. "They could be anywhere." As we turned the corner onto a quieter street, Daniel's demeanor shifted. He suddenly moved closer, lowering his voice. "Do you have a car nearby?" "Yes. I parked a few blocks away," I replied, feeling a flicker of hope. "I can drive us." "Good. Let's keep moving." We continued at a brisk pace, my thoughts swirling. I had been thrust into a nightmare without warning, but Daniel's presence provided a strange comfort. There was a sense of urgency in his every move, and I hoped he knew what he was doing. Finally, we reached my car, a modest sedan parked in a dimly lit area, slightly hidden by overhanging branches. I fumbled for the keys in my pocket, trying to maintain composure despite the whirlwind of emotions surging within me. "Here it is," I said, unlocking the door. As I slid into the driver's seat, Daniel jumped in beside me, casting a wary glance over his shoulder. "We need to act quickly. Start the engine and drive. Don't look back." I nodded, my hands trembling slightly as I inserted the key and turned it. The engine roared to life, and I pulled out onto the road, the tires crunching against the gravel. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay here. We sped through the town, Daniel giving directions, guiding me toward a back road that wound through dense trees. "This way," he urged, his eyes darting nervously around. "We can't risk being seen." As we drove deeper into the woods, I felt the atmosphere shift. The air grew thicker, charged with an energy I couldn't quite place. I glanced at Daniel, whose jaw was set tight, and I could see the tension in his shoulders. "What are we running from?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "People who have been looking for the box for generations," he replied, his gaze fixed ahead. "They believe it holds the key to unlocking something far more dangerous than you can imagine." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" "Legends speak of a power that can manipulate fate itself," he said. "There are tales of those who have sought the box, and the terrible consequences that followed. We need to keep moving before they catch up to us." I pressed the accelerator, the trees blurring past us as we sped deeper into the forest. The road was narrow and winding, but the urgency pushed me to navigate it with precision. "How do you know so much about all of this?" I asked, glancing at him. "My family has been protecting secrets for generations," Daniel explained, his voice tense. "This is not the first time the box has resurfaced, and it won't be the last. We thought we'd finally put an end to it, but it seems we were wrong." As we rounded a bend, Daniel suddenly stiffened beside me. "Slow down," he said urgently. "I think I saw something." I pressed the brakes, skidding slightly on the gravel. My heart raced as I peered through the windshield, trying to make out what had caught his attention. In the distance, I saw shadows moving among the trees, figures dressed in dark clothing, their movements quick and deliberate. "Go! We can't stay here," Daniel shouted, panic seeping into his voice. I slammed on the gas, the tires spinning slightly before gaining traction. As we barreled down the road, I could see them breaking through the trees, their silhouettes emerging like phantoms. "Who are they?" I gasped, fear creeping into my voice. "People who will stop at nothing to get that box," he replied, urgency ringing in every word. "They know it's in your possession, and they'll do whatever it takes to retrieve it." I felt a surge of adrenaline as I navigated the treacherous road, weaving between the trees. I could hear the faint sound of footsteps behind us, growing louder with each passing second. "Where are we going?" I shouted, my eyes scanning the path ahead, desperate for an escape. "There's an old cabin a few miles from here," Daniel said. "It should be hidden enough that we can regroup and figure out our next move." I nodded, determination flooding through me. "Hang on," I shouted as I turned sharply onto a narrower path, my heart racing with each twist and turn. The trees loomed over us, a tangled canopy blocking out the last remnants of daylight. As we pressed on, the sounds of pursuit faded into the background. We were moving deeper into the woods, and the weight of the mysterious box and its secrets pressed down on me. Would we be safe at the cabin? And what would we discover about the items I had found? Finally, we spotted a weathered structure nestled among the trees. It looked abandoned, but it was our best chance for cover. I pulled up and parked, my heart racing as I turned off the engine. "We need to move quickly," Daniel urged, glancing back toward the road. "Stay close to me." As we stepped out of the car, the air felt thick with tension, and I glanced back, half expecting to see figures emerging from the shadows. Daniel led the way to the cabin, and I followed closely behind, my mind racing with fear and uncertainty. Inside, the cabin was dark and dusty, filled with remnants of a time long forgotten. Daniel flicked on a small flashlight he pulled from his pocket, illuminating the room. Old furniture lay strewn about, and cobwebs clung to the corners like forgotten memories. "We'll need to secure the doors and find a place to hide the box," he said, his tone serious. "If they find us, everything is at stake." I nodded, still clutching the wooden box as if it were my lifeline. "What do we do next?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "We figure out what's so important about what's inside," he replied, his eyes narrowing as he examined the surroundings. "And we need to prepare for whatever comes next." The door creaked ominously as I moved to secure it, and a sense of foreboding settled around us. We were in the heart of danger, and the secrets of the box felt heavier than ever. As I glanced at Daniel, determination mixed with fear in my heart. We were in this together now, and whatever lay ahead, we would face it, secrets and all. As the last echoes of the door's creak faded, Daniel and I took a moment to catch our breath. The cabin was dim, illuminated only by the beam of his flashlight, which danced across the dusty surfaces and exposed the remnants of a forgotten life. I could feel the weight of the box in my hands, the unknown mysteries it contained pressing heavily on my mind. "What's the first thing we should do?" I asked, trying to steady my voice despite the adrenaline coursing through me. The cabin felt suffocating, as if it was closing in around us. Daniel turned to me, his face illuminated in the stark light. "We need to open it and see what's inside. It could give us clues about who's after us and why." "Are you sure it's safe?" I hesitated, the thought of unveiling its contents sending a shiver down my spine. "We don't have a choice," he said firmly. "We need to understand what we're dealing with, especially if those people are still on our trail." I nodded, steeling myself. Carefully, I placed the box on an old, rickety table that seemed to groan under its weight. Its surface was marred with scratches and stains, a testament to years of neglect. I could hear my heartbeat echoing in my ears as I reached for the latch. With a hesitant click, the latch released, and I lifted the lid. The smell of old wood and something faintly metallic wafted out, mixing with the stale air of the cabin. Inside lay an assortment of items, each seemingly ordinary, yet somehow imbued with a sense of history. "First, there's the locket," I said, pulling it from the box. It was silver and intricately designed, its surface engraved with floral patterns. I opened it carefully, revealing two tiny portraits, one of a woman, the other of a man. They looked vaguely familiar, yet I couldn't place them. "Do you recognize these people?" Daniel leaned closer, examining the portraits. "They look like they could be from another time. This locket could be a family heirloom. It might connect to the people searching for you." I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. What if it's a trap? What if they know we have it? "Then we need to be ready," he replied, his voice steadying me. "Let's keep looking." Next, I pulled out the key, its metallic surface glinting in the flashlight's beam. It was ornate, with intricate designs carved into it. "This looks important. What do you think it unlocks?" "Could be a safe, a door, something significant," Daniel mused, his brow furrowing in thought. "We need to find out where it fits." Finally, I reached for the photograph that had been tucked into the box. As I unfolded it, I felt a sense of dread wash over me. The image depicted a dilapidated house, its windows shattered and covered in ivy. I could almost feel the weight of time pressing down on it, the stories it held screaming to be uncovered. "Where is this place?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Daniel took the photograph from me, scrutinizing it closely. "I've seen this house before. It's not far from here, abandoned, but not forgotten. We might need to investigate." Investigate? My heart raced at the thought of venturing out again, especially after the chase we'd just escaped. What if they're already there? "We can't let fear dictate our actions," Daniel replied, his gaze fierce. "We have to be smart. If this house is connected to the box, it could reveal everything. Besides, it's not like we have a lot of options." I took a deep breath, the reality of our situation settling in. "Okay, let's do it." We spent the next few minutes gathering what we could. Daniel stashed the box in his backpack, along with the locket, key, and photograph. I glanced around the cabin, the shadows stretching ominously, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. "Let's check the perimeter before we leave," Daniel suggested, moving cautiously toward a small window. He pulled back the tattered curtain, peering outside into the dim light. "It looks clear for now, but we need to be quick." I joined him, my heart pounding as I followed his gaze into the thickening woods. The trees loomed large, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out. "Do you think they found us?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Not yet, but we can't wait around to find out," he replied. "Let's move." We stepped out of the cabin into the cool air, the forest surrounding us like an endless labyrinth. The sounds of nature were muted, and every rustle of leaves made my heart race. Together, we navigated the narrow path, my senses heightened as I scanned for any signs of danger. Daniel led the way, moving with a confidence I envied. "Keep an eye out for anything unusual," he said, his voice steady despite the unease that thrummed in the air. As we trekked deeper into the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching us. Every glance over my shoulder revealed only shadows, but the instinct to flee lingered in the pit of my stomach. After what felt like an eternity, we emerged from the trees onto a dirt road that wound through the forest. "We're almost there," Daniel said, his expression a mix of determination and urgency. "Just a bit further." The anticipation of reaching the house built within me, mingling with the dread of what we might find. What if the people after us are already there? I asked, anxiety creeping into my voice. "We'll face them together," Daniel reassured me, his gaze steady. "Just remember what's at stake. This is about more than just us now." As we approached the old house, I felt a chill run down my spine. The structure loomed before us, its once proud facade now a shadow of its former self. Broken windows stared back at us like hollow eyes, and the front door hung loosely on its hinges, swaying slightly in the breeze. "Here we go," Daniel said, stepping forward. "Stay close." With that, we crossed the threshold into the unknown, the weight of our discoveries heavy on our shoulders. What secrets lay within these crumbling walls, and would we uncover the truth before it was too late? As we stepped into the dimly lit interior of the house, a heavy silence enveloped us, broken only by the creaking of the floorboards beneath our feet. Dust motes floated in the air, illuminated by the slivers of sunlight that broke through the cracks in the boarded-up windows. The air was thick with the scent of mildew, a reminder that this place had long been abandoned, forgotten by time. "Stay close," Daniel whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. I nodded, my heart racing as I followed him deeper into the gloom. The floorboards groaned under our weight, sounding like the house itself was protesting our intrusion. We moved cautiously through a narrow hallway, pausing as we reached a room on our left. The door hung ajar, and I could see remnants of what had once been a living room. Torn furniture lay strewn about, covered in a thick layer of dust. A faded photograph hung crookedly on the wall, capturing a moment of joy in a time long gone. "What happened here?" I asked, my voice echoing slightly in the stillness. Daniel stepped inside, inspecting the room. "Looks like it's been like this for years. Whatever happened, it left this place in ruins." I scanned the room, my eyes drawn to a fireplace at the far end. Above it, a large mirror hung, cracked and dusty. I took a step closer, instinctively reaching out to touch the surface. My fingers brushed against the glass, sending a shiver down my spine. I felt an unsettling presence, as if something, or someone, was watching me through the reflection. "Let's check the upstairs," Daniel suggested, snapping me back to reality. "Maybe there's something more up there." We climbed the creaking staircase, each step echoing like a warning in the stillness. The second floor felt even more oppressive, the shadows deepening as we made our way down the narrow hallway. Doors lined both sides, some partially open, revealing darkened rooms that whispered secrets we could not yet understand. "Which one?" I asked, hesitating at the first door on the left. The handle felt cold in my hand, and I could hear my heartbeat thudding in my ears. "Let's try this one," Daniel replied, pointing to a door at the end of the hall. He pushed it open, revealing a small bedroom that was surprisingly intact compared to the rest of the house. Inside, the bed was still made, the sheets yellowed with age. A small nightstand held an old lamp, its bulb covered in dust. On the wall hung a series of framed pictures, each depicting a family that looked eerily familiar, though I couldn't quite place them. "Look at these," I said, pointing to the photographs. "Do you recognize them?" Daniel moved closer, examining the faces. "They look like the people in the locket. This must have been their home." I felt a chill run down my spine as I connected the dots. So they lived here, and whatever happened to them led to this place being abandoned. "We need to find more answers," Daniel urged, moving toward a closet that stood slightly ajar. He opened it with a creak, revealing a jumble of old clothes and boxes. "Let's see if there's anything in here." As we rifled through the closet, I noticed something glimmering beneath a pile of dusty coats. I reached in and pulled out a small metal box, its surface engraved with similar floral patterns as the locket. My heart raced as I held it up. "Do you think it belongs to the family?" I asked, turning the box over in my hands. "Could be," Daniel replied, taking the box from me to examine it closely. "Let's see what's inside." He fumbled with the latch, finally prying it open. Inside lay a collection of letters, yellowed with age and tied together with a fraying ribbon. Daniel lifted them out carefully, a look of intrigue crossing his face. "What do they say?" I asked, leaning in closer. He began to read the top letter aloud. "My dearest Clara, each day grows heavier without you. I cannot bear to think of the darkness that surrounds us." His voice trailed off, the weight of the words heavy in the air. "What darkness?" I pressed, feeling the unease settle in my stomach. Daniel continued reading, his brow furrowing as he turned the pages. "It seems like something terrible happened in this house. Clara speaks of shadows and whispers that haunt her, of feeling like she's being watched. I exchanged a glance with Daniel, my breath hitching in my throat. Do you think they were in danger? Seems likely, he said grimly. And it's possible that whatever happened to them is connected to the people searching for us. We need to keep looking. We continued to sift through the letters, each one revealing more about Clara's life and the dark circumstances that surrounded her. It became clear that her family had experienced a series of tragic events, disappearances, threats, and a pervasive sense of dread that had seeped into every corner of their lives. Finally, we reached the last letter. Daniel unfolded it carefully, and as he read, his voice shook slightly. I fear for my children. They are restless, tormented by dreams of a man who watches us from the shadows. I fear that he is coming for us, and we will not be able to escape. A chill ran through me as I considered the implications. Do you think that man is connected to the people after us? It's possible, Daniel replied, looking deeply troubled. But we have to find out who he is. Suddenly, we heard a noise from downstairs, a soft but unmistakable creak. Our heads snapped toward the door, the tension in the room thickening. I could feel panic rising in my chest. Did you hear that? I whispered, my heart racing. Daniel nodded, his expression serious. We need to be careful. Someone else might be here. He moved quietly toward the door, peering out into the hallway. The house felt alive, each shadow a potential threat. Let's check it out, he said, signaling for me to follow. Together, we stepped into the hallway, our senses on high alert. The sound had come from the staircase, and as we approached, a sense of foreboding settled over me. The weight of the house's history pressed down, urging us to turn back, but we couldn't afford to. What if it's them? I whispered, fear gripping me. Daniel took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the darkness. Then we'll confront them together. With each step down the stairs, the creaking boards seemed to echo our apprehension. The hallway was eerily silent, save for the faint sound of our breathing. As we reached the bottom, I noticed the front door was ajar, swinging gently in the breeze. Did we leave it open? I asked, glancing at Daniel. No, we closed it, he replied, his voice low. Someone's been here. We exchanged a look of dread, both of us fully aware that we weren't alone in the house. Let's go back, I urged, my instincts screaming at me to escape. But before we could retreat, a figure stepped into the doorway. The light from outside framed their silhouette, and as they moved into the house, my heart dropped. Who are you? Daniel demanded, stepping protectively in front of me. The figure paused, a smirk spreading across their face. I believe you have something that belongs to me. The figure stepped fully into the room, revealing a woman with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that glinted in the dim light. Her hair, long and dark, framed her face like a dark halo. An unsettling calm surrounded her as she assessed us, her gaze lingering on the box in Daniel's hand. What do you want? Daniel asked, his voice steady but laced with tension. She took a step closer, her confidence palpable. I came for the letters. They're not yours to keep. You shouldn't have stumbled upon this place. The air thickened with an unspoken challenge as I exchanged glances with Daniel. Who are you? I demanded, finding my voice despite the fear churning in my stomach. I am Clara's sister, she replied, her tone icy. I've been searching for those letters for years. They hold secrets that are better left buried. Secrets? I echoed, my curiosity piqued despite the danger. What kind of secrets? A flicker of annoyance crossed her face. It's not your place to know. Your presence here has already disturbed the peace of this house. Disturb it how? Daniel pressed, gripping the box tightly as if it were a lifeline. If anything, we're trying to understand what happened to Clara and her family. She chuckled softly, a sound that sent chills down my spine. Understanding will only bring you pain. The shadows that haunted them will soon find you as well. You should leave while you still can. Why are you protecting this house? I asked, my heart racing. What happened here? Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of vulnerability beneath her bravado. Because it's my family's legacy. It's all I have left of Clara. The darkness that consumed her should not touch anyone else. I felt a surge of empathy, realizing that beneath her cold exterior lay a woman burdened by loss. We didn't mean to intrude. We didn't want to know what happened. Curiosity killed the cat, she replied, her voice dropping to a whisper. And it might just kill you too. Daniel stepped forward, determination etched on his face. We can help you find peace. If there are shadows haunting this place, we'll face them together. For a brief moment, her fierce demeanor wavered. You don't understand what you're asking for, she warned, her voice shaking slightly. These shadows are not of this world. They take on forms you cannot imagine. Then help us fight them, I pleaded, sensing that she was at a crossroads. You don't have to be alone in this. She studied us for a long moment, uncertainty flickering across her features. The tension in the room was palpable, the air thick with unspoken fears. Finally, she took a deep breath and stepped back, the icy facade beginning to crack. Very well, but you need to promise me that you will not interfere with the past. The letters must remain untouched until we uncover the truth together. Daniel and I exchanged glances, a mixture of relief and apprehension flooding us. We promise, I said firmly, feeling a bond form in this shared moment of understanding. The woman nodded, her expression softening just a fraction. I am Lila, by the way. Clara was my sister, and I've carried the weight of her disappearance for far too long. With that, she stepped into the room fully, her body language shifting from that of an adversary to a reluctant ally. Let's begin by uncovering the truth behind those letters. We gathered around the small table in the room, and Lila began to sift through the letters, her fingers trembling slightly as she unfolded each one. These letters are fragments of a life filled with despair and fear. Clara often spoke of a man who would come at night, a dark figure who haunted their dreams. Do you think it's the same man from the letters? I asked, leaning closer to get a better look. Lila nodded, her face grim. He was a part of their lives, a shadow lurking at the edges of their reality. He was a part of a darkness that consumed them. What if he's still here? Daniel asked, glancing toward the door. What if he knows we're here? That's a risk we have to take, Lila replied, her voice steady. But we need to understand what he wanted from Clara and her family. Only then can we hope to confront him. As she read the letters aloud, the stories of fear and hopelessness painted a picture of a family tormented by the unknown. Clara spoke of nightly visits from the man, his presence suffocating, like a dark cloud that wouldn't disperse. I've seen him, Lila said, her voice trembling with emotion. He's not just a figment of Clara's imagination. He's real, and he comes for those who seek the truth. What do you mean? I pressed, my heart racing. Clara believed he was connected to our family's past, to secrets we buried long ago, Lila explained. And I think he wants to ensure those secrets remain hidden. The room fell silent as we absorbed her words. An uneasy feeling settled over us, thickening the air like fog. Let's find the truth, Daniel said finally, determination lacing his voice. We can't let this man control our fate. As Lila looked at us, I could see the flicker of hope in her eyes. You're right. If we confront this darkness together, perhaps we can finally free Clara and ourselves from the shadows that bind us. With newfound resolve, we set out to uncover the hidden truths of the past, determined to face whatever awaited us in the dark. With Lila leading the way, we descended into the dimly lit basement, the air growing colder with each step. The musty scent of old wood and mildew filled my lungs, making it harder to breathe. Flickering candles cast dancing shadows on the stone walls, creating an eerie ambience that heightened my anxiety. Clara often talked about a hidden room down here, Lila said, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a place where she and her family would gather to share stories, but as time went on, it became a refuge for the darkness. Do you know where it is? I asked, glancing around the cramped space. The walls seemed to close in on us, a reminder of the secrets waiting to be uncovered. Somewhere near the back, Lila replied, leading us further into the depths of the basement. The dim light revealed dusty furniture draped in white sheets, as if the room itself had been frozen in time. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, their delicate strands shimmering like ghostly tendrils. Finally, we reached a heavy wooden door, its surface weathered and splintered. Lila hesitated for a moment, her hand hovering over the doorknob. Are you ready for this? She asked, her eyes reflecting both fear and determination. Daniel and I nodded, steeling ourselves for whatever lay beyond. Lila took a deep breath and turned the knob, the door creaking open with a haunting groan. Inside, the room was dimly lit by a single flickering bulb. Old furniture was stacked against the walls, and dust particles danced in the air, illuminated by the faint light. The atmosphere was thick with history, and the weight of the past pressed down on us. "This is it," Lila breathed, stepping inside. This was Clara's sanctuary. We cautiously entered, and my gaze fell upon a large trunk in the corner, its surface covered in dust. It looked as if it hadn't been opened in years. Lila approached it, her hands trembling slightly as she placed them on the lid. "Inside this trunk are Clara's belongings," she explained, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "She kept everything that mattered to her, letters, photographs, and things that might help us understand what happened." With a firm pull, Lila opened the trunk, revealing a treasure trove of memories. Faded photographs, handwritten letters, and a small music box that seemed to glimmer in the dim light. Each item was a fragment of Clara's life, a glimpse into the woman who once lived in this house. "Let's start with these letters," Lila suggested, sifting through the pile. "They might give us insight into her state of mind before she vanished." As she began to read aloud, the words painted a vivid picture of Clara's life. Each letter revealed her growing unease, her fears of the dark figure that haunted her dreams and invaded her reality. The man she spoke of was not just a shadow. He was a presence that seeped into every aspect of her life. "It says here that she felt watched, even when she was alone," Lila murmured, her brow furrowing. "She mentions hearing whispers in the night, voices calling her name. It's like he was trying to lure her to him." "Do you think the man was trying to get her to join him?" Daniel asked, leaning closer to listen. "Perhaps," Lila replied, "but there's more. In this letter, Clara writes about a family secret, something that her parents had hidden from her. She believed it was connected to the man, the darkness that enveloped her." My heart raced at the implication. What if her family had something to do with this? Lila shook her head, frustration flickering across her features. "I don't know, but whatever it is, it can't be good." As she continued reading, I noticed the music box nestled among the letters. It was intricately designed, adorned with delicate carvings that seemed to tell a story of their own. I reached for it, feeling a strange pull towards the object. "Lila, what's this?" I asked, holding it up for her to see. "That music box," she whispered, her eyes widening. "It was Clara's favorite. She used to play it when she felt afraid." Curiosity mingled with unease as I turned the key and opened the box. A haunting melody filled the room, each note resonating with an otherworldly quality. The music seemed to seep into my very bones, wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The flickering bulb above us dimmed, and a chill crept through the air, making the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. Lila's expression shifted from nostalgia to alarm, and I could sense an unseen force gathering in the room. "Close it," she shouted, her voice rising in urgency. "We shouldn't have opened it." I quickly snapped the lid shut, and the music ceased abruptly. The room fell silent, the tension thickening like a storm cloud ready to burst. "What just happened?" Daniel asked, his eyes wide with fear. "I don't know, but I felt something," Lila admitted, her voice shaky. "Like the music awakened something that should have remained buried." "Do you think it was the man?" I whispered, my pulse quickening. Lila nodded slowly, her expression grave. "He might be trying to warn us or lure us into his world. We need to be careful." The weight of her words hung in the air, a grim reminder of the dangers we faced. We gathered the letters and photographs, placing them back in the trunk, hoping to contain whatever darkness had seeped into the room. But as we stood there, surrounded by Clara's memories, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had already crossed a line, stepping deeper into a mystery that would not easily let us go. "Let's get out of here," Daniel suggested, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "We need to regroup and figure out our next move." As we climbed the stairs back to the main floor, the air grew heavier, and the shadows seemed to stretch and writhe around us. I glanced back at the trunk one last time, knowing that it held answers but also dangers we were unprepared to face. Outside, the night air was cool and refreshing, but the lingering sense of dread remained. The weight of Clara's legacy felt heavier than ever, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our journey was just beginning. "Where do we go from here?" Lila asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "We need to learn more about Clara's family and the man from her letters," I suggested, glancing toward the darkened woods surrounding the house. "And we need to uncover the truth behind the shadows that haunt us." With determination burning in our hearts, we set out into the night, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, knowing that the darkness would not let us go easily. The following day dawned with an unsettling calm, as if the world outside was holding its breath. The sun peeked through the clouds, casting a soft glow over the landscape, but the tranquility did little to ease the tension coiling in my stomach. The events of the previous night weighed heavily on my mind, a constant reminder of the shadows lurking in Clara's past. Lila and I decided to head into town to dig deeper into Clara's history. We hoped that local archives or libraries might hold clues about her family and the mysterious man who haunted her letters. Daniel opted to stay behind, feeling overwhelmed by the intensity of the situation, which gave us a chance to explore without any distractions. The drive to town was filled with a quiet resolve. Lila turned the radio on low, a soothing background to our anxious thoughts. I stole glances at her, admiring her determination despite the fear etched on her face. The shadows of Clara's past loomed over us like an ominous cloud, and the further we drove, the more I felt the weight of our mission pressing down on us. Upon reaching the town, we parked near the local library, a quaint brick building that seemed to have witnessed generations of secrets. As we stepped inside, the smell of old paper and ink enveloped us, mingling with the faint aroma of coffee from the small cafe in the corner. "Let's start with the archives," Lila suggested, leading the way to a room filled with rows of dusty shelves and ancient books. A librarian, an elderly woman with sharp eyes and a warm smile, greeted us. "Welcome. How can I assist you today?" she asked, her voice gentle yet inquisitive. "We're looking for information about a woman named Clara Hastings," Lila explained. "She lived in this town many years ago." The librarian's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of recognition passing over her features. "Ah, Clara Hastings. I remember her well. A lovely girl, but her family had some peculiarities." "What do you mean?" I interjected, intrigued. The Hastings family was known for their reclusiveness. They kept to themselves and rarely interacted with the townsfolk. Rumors swirled about them, especially regarding Clara. People said she had a special connection to the supernatural. "Supernatural?" Lila echoed, her brow furrowing. The librarian nodded, her eyes glinting with the thrill of sharing a story. "Yes, there were whispers of strange occurrences around their home. Some believed Clara could see things, visions perhaps. After she disappeared, it only fueled the rumors." My heart raced at the implications. "Did anything happen around the time she vanished?" I asked, eager for more details. The librarian pondered for a moment, tapping her fingers on the desk. "Let me check the old newspapers. They might have reported something." She shuffled away, leaving Lila and me to exchange anxious glances. "Do you think Clara's abilities were real?" I asked quietly. "I don't know," Lila replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But if she had visions, it could explain why the man was drawn to her." The librarian returned, holding a stack of old newspapers. "Here we are. These articles should help you." As we pored over the yellowed pages, snippets of Clara's life began to unfold before us. There were mentions of odd happenings in the neighborhood, pets going missing, unexplained sounds coming from the Hastings home, and even sightings of a shadowy figure near the property. The final article was dated just weeks before her disappearance, detailing a local fair where Clara had reportedly performed some kind of fortune-telling act, captivating the townspeople. "She was a performer?" Lila murmured, her eyes scanning the words. "That's interesting. Maybe she knew something about her future," I mused. "Maybe she was trying to warn people." The articles hinted at a growing unease within the community, as fear and speculation spread like wildfire. People began to avoid the Hastings home, whispering about the darkness that surrounded it. The final article left us with more questions than answers. As Clara vanished without a trace, leaving only a lingering sense of dread. "I think we need to visit the fairgrounds," I suggested, my mind racing. "It might lead us to someone who remembers her." Lila nodded in agreement, and we set out for the fairgrounds, which lay on the outskirts of town. As we drove, a sense of urgency propelled us forward. The memories of Clara's life echoed in my mind, intertwining with the mysteries we were determined to unravel. When we arrived, the fairgrounds were eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the lively events that must have taken place there. Faded banners flapped in the gentle breeze, and remnants of carnival games stood abandoned, swallowed by nature's relentless grip. "Look over there." Lila pointed towards a dilapidated pavilion at the far end of the grounds. That might have been where Clara performed. We approached the pavilion, its wooden beams creaking under our weight. The atmosphere felt thick with echoes of laughter and music, but now it was silent, as if the ghost of the fair lingered just out of reach. "Maybe someone here remembers her," Lila said, scanning the area for any signs of life. Just then, an elderly man emerged from the shadows, his wrinkled face etched with wisdom. "Are you looking for Clara Hastings?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. "How did you know?" I replied, surprised. "I've been around long enough to remember the tales. Clara was something special, but people like her don't just disappear without reason." "What do you mean?" Lila asked, stepping closer. There was darkness in her family. Clara could sense it, but she was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. She had visions, warnings, but the people around her, they didn't want to listen. "Do you think that's why she disappeared?" I pressed, my heart pounding in my chest. He nodded solemnly. There were whispers that a shadow followed her, a man who wanted something from her. Many believed she had uncovered secrets her family had hidden. The night she vanished, I saw the shadow at the edge of the fairgrounds. It was watching her. "What happened after she disappeared?" Lila asked, her voice filled with urgency. "People went searching, but they found nothing. Clara's family packed up and left town shortly after. The place was never the same again, tainted by the loss." His words hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder of the darkness we were trying to understand. I exchanged a glance with Lila, knowing that we were inching closer to the truth, but the fear of what we might uncover loomed ever larger. "Do you know where her family went?" I asked, desperate for any leads. The man shook his head. "No one ever saw them again. But if you're looking for answers, you may want to investigate the old Hastings house. It's said to be haunted, but it might hold the key to uncovering the truth about Clara." The mention of the old house sent a shiver down my spine. It was the very place we had initially wanted to avoid, but now it seemed inevitable. We needed to confront the shadows that lingered there. "Thank you," Lila said, her voice steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. "We'll look into it." As we left the fairgrounds, the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the landscape. The air grew colder, and the darkness deepened, wrapping around us like a shroud. With each step toward the Hastings house, I could feel the pull of Clara's story, the urgency to uncover the secrets that had been buried for far too long. "Are you ready for this?" Lila asked, glancing at me as we approached the car. I nodded, steeling myself for the confrontation that awaited us. We have to know the truth. For Clara. With determination burning in our hearts, we set off toward the old Hastings house, ready to face whatever awaited us within its walls, knowing that the shadows of the past were calling us home. As we drove through the growing darkness, the atmosphere outside felt heavy, charged with an energy that seemed to pulse in rhythm with my racing heart. The trees on either side of the road stood like silent sentinels, their branches swaying ominously in the wind. It felt as though they were whispering secrets, echoing the mysteries we were about to confront at the old Hastings house. Lila was unusually quiet, her thoughts clearly racing as we approached our destination. The house loomed in the distance, silhouetted against the twilight sky, a crumbling structure that had seen better days. It sat at the end of a long, winding driveway, its once vibrant colors faded to dull hues, giving it an air of desolation. Overgrown weeds clawed at the sides, reclaiming the land, as if nature itself was trying to bury the remnants of a forgotten past. "I can't believe we're actually doing this," Lila finally said, breaking the silence. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying her nerves. We need to find out what happened to Clara, I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. She deserves that much. We parked the car and stepped out, the crunch of gravel beneath our feet echoing in the stillness. The air was thick with anticipation, a tangible tension that hung around us like a fog. As we walked towards the house, I could feel the weight of history pressing down, each step filled with trepidation. The front door, slightly ajar, creaked ominously as we approached. I glanced at Lila, and she nodded, urging me forward. I pushed the door open, the hinges protesting as if reluctant to allow us entry. Inside, the air was stale and musty, tinged with the scent of decay. Dust motes danced in the fading light that filtered through grimy windows, casting eerie shadows across the floor. The once grand foyer was now a shell of its former self, the wallpaper peeling, and the floorboards groaning underfoot. "Let's start in the living room," I suggested, remembering the man's warning about the family secrets. We moved cautiously through the house, careful to avoid any loose floorboards. The living room was just as I imagined it. Faded furniture draped in dust, a fireplace filled with ashes long since extinguished. Lila ran her fingers along the back of a chair, her expression a mixture of nostalgia and sadness. "Can you feel it?" she whispered, glancing at me. "It's like the house is alive with memories." I nodded, feeling an inexplicable connection to the place. It was as if Clara's spirit lingered here, watching us with eyes filled with both hope and despair. As we explored further, we stumbled upon a narrow staircase leading to the upper floor. "Should we go up?" Lila asked, her eyes wide with apprehension. "Absolutely. We might find something that could explain everything," I replied, trying to quell the unease that settled in my stomach. The stairs creaked ominously as we climbed, the wood groaning under our weight. At the top, we were greeted by a long hallway lined with doors, each one a potential gateway to Clara's past. I paused, my hand hovering over the doorknob of the first room. "Which one?" I asked, looking at Lila for guidance. She pointed to the last door at the end of the hallway. "That one. It feels different." Taking a deep breath, I approached the door and turned the knob. It swung open, revealing a small bedroom, dimly lit by the fading light seeping through the curtains. The room was filled with remnants of childhood, dolls, books, and an old trunk tucked away in the corner. "This must have been Clara's room," I said softly, stepping inside. A sense of reverence washed over me as I looked around, taking in the personal touches that had once made this space a sanctuary. Lila moved to the trunk and knelt beside it. "Help me open this," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. Together, we lifted the heavy lid, revealing a treasure trove of memories. Inside, we found old photographs, letters, and toys that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. As I rifled through the items, one photograph caught my eye, a picture of Clara, her face bright and alive, surrounded by friends at the fair. "Look at this," I exclaimed, holding it up for Lila to see. She looked so happy. "Yeah," Lila said, her eyes widening. "But look at the background." I squinted at the photo and noticed a shadowy figure lurking behind the group, partially obscured by the vibrant colors of the fair. The figure seemed out of place, a dark silhouette that sent chills down my spine. "Who is that?" I murmured, feeling a sense of dread creep over me. "I don't know, but we need to find out," Lila replied, her determination igniting a spark of courage within me. We continued sifting through the trunk, uncovering more photographs that told a fragmented story of Clara's life. There were letters filled with hopes and dreams, but also notes that hinted at a growing darkness. Words like fear, shadow, and warning echoed through the pages, each one weighing heavier than the last. What if she was trying to tell someone? Lila speculated, her brow furrowed. What if she knew something was coming? The thought chilled me to the bone. "We have to find out who that shadowy figure is," I said, urgency propelling me forward. "Maybe he's the key to understanding what happened to her." As we continued to explore the room, I noticed something glinting under the bed. I knelt down and reached for it, pulling out a small, ornate locket. It was slightly tarnished but still beautiful, adorned with intricate designs. When I opened it, my heart raced. Inside was a tiny photograph of Clara, and on the opposite side was a lock of hair. "Lila, look at this," I called, holding it up. "That's creepy," she said, peering closer. "Do you think it was something she treasured, or something she was afraid of losing?" I replied, my mind racing with possibilities. This might mean something. As we sat in Clara's room, surrounded by the ghosts of her past, I felt the weight of our journey pressing down on us. We were so close to uncovering the truth, yet the shadows still loomed large, threatening to engulf us. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the house, a faint whisper, almost like a sigh, that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Lila and I exchanged nervous glances, the tension in the air thickening. "Did you hear that?" Lila whispered. "Yeah," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. It came from downstairs. With trepidation, we descended the stairs, each step filled with unease. The whispering grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to call out to us. The living room felt even darker than before, and I instinctively reached for Lila's hand. "Stay close," I said, my voice steady despite the fear threatening to overwhelm me. As we entered the living room, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt electric, crackling with a sense of urgency. Shadows flickered at the edges of our vision, and the whispers crescendoed into a haunting chorus. "Clara," I called out, my voice trembling. "Are you here?" For a moment, there was silence, a stillness that hung in the air like a suspended breath. Then, a figure materialized in the corner of the room, a faint silhouette of a woman, her features indistinct but radiating a sense of longing and sadness. "Clara," Lila breathed, taking a step closer. The figure seemed to nod, a faint smile crossing her lips. In that moment, I felt a connection, a bond that transcended time and space. Clara was reaching out to us, her spirit lingering in the shadows, urging us to uncover the truth. "What do you want us to know?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. The whispers intensified, swirling around us like a tempest, and I could almost make out words, warnings, fears, and a name that echoed through the chaos. My heart raced as I strained to hear, trying to piece together the fragmented message. "Find him," the whispers urged, "before it's too late." And just as suddenly as she appeared, Clara's figure began to fade, her form dissolving into the darkness. The whispers faded along with her, leaving us in stunned silence. Did we really see her?" Lila gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I think we did," I replied, my pulse racing. "But she was trying to tell us something. We need to find out who him is." With renewed determination, we stepped back into the remnants of Clara's life, knowing that the shadows were not finished with us yet. The night was still young, and we were only just beginning to unravel the chilling truth behind Clara's disappearance. The night had fallen into an oppressive silence, the kind that pressed against my chest and made each breath feel heavy. Lila and I stood in the dimly lit living room, our minds racing with the weight of what we had just experienced. Clara's apparition had felt so real, her presence lingering in the air like a cold breeze. "What do you think she meant by find him?" Lila asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she paced the room, her eyes darting toward the shadows. "I don't know, but it sounds like whoever she was warning us about is somehow connected to her disappearance," I replied, my heart pounding as the pieces of the puzzle began to take shape in my mind. "We need to figure out who that shadowy figure was in the photographs." Lila nodded, her expression resolute. "Let's go back to the trunk. There might be more clues there." We hurried back to Clara's room, the atmosphere thick with a sense of urgency. I rifled through the trunk again, searching for any hint that could lead us to the truth. As I sifted through the photographs, one image caught my eye, a faded picture of a group of friends at a party. Clara was smiling, surrounded by a few familiar faces, but one man stood out, his features obscured by shadows. "This guy," I said, holding up the photograph for Lila to see. "He looks like the figure in that other photo." Lila leaned in closer, squinting at the picture. "I can't see his face, but he definitely seems to be someone important to Clara. What if he's the one who caused her harm?" I suggested, the weight of the possibility crashing down on me. "Then we need to find out who he is," Lila affirmed. "Let's see if there's anything else in the trunk." We continued our search, and Lila's hand brushed against a small leather-bound notebook. She pulled it out and opened it carefully, the pages yellowed and fragile. "This looks like Clara's journal," she said, her eyes widening with excitement. I leaned in closer, eager to uncover the secrets hidden within. Lila flipped through the pages, reading snippets aloud. "Here's an entry from a few months before she disappeared." She cleared her throat and began to read. "I feel like something is coming. I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. I've seen him in the shadows, lurking. I don't know who he is, but I can't help but feel a connection to him. I need to be careful." The words sent a shiver down my spine. Clara had sensed danger, and her intuition had been right. "This is exactly what we need," I said, my heart racing. "We need to find out who she was talking about." Lila continued reading. "There are more entries about the same man, but they all seem cryptic. She mentions meeting him at a party, but never reveals his name." I frowned, trying to remember the photograph. If he was at the party, then maybe someone else in the photo knows who he is. We need to track down Clara's friends. "Do you think they'll be willing to talk?" Lila asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "If they know anything about Clara's fate, they might not have a choice," I replied, a sense of determination igniting within me. We owe it to her to find out the truth. We spent the next few hours meticulously examining Clara's journal for names and locations. As we pieced together the fragments of her life, one name stood out repeatedly: Ethan Malone. He was mentioned in various entries, always in relation to gatherings or outings. Clara's tone shifted when she wrote about him, revealing an infatuation that turned to apprehension. Lila pointed to one entry, her voice low. "This one says she felt a strong connection with him at first, but then it turned dark. She writes about feeling trapped, like he was pulling her into something she didn't understand." "That's it," I said, feeling a sense of urgency. "Ethan could be the key to understanding what happened to her. We need to find him." With the first light of dawn creeping through the window, we formulated a plan. We decided to visit the last known address for Ethan Malone, which Clara had scribbled in the back of her journal. According to her notes, he lived in a small apartment complex just outside town. "I just hope he's still there," Lila said, her voice trembling slightly with anticipation. As the sun rose, casting a golden hue over the world, we set out in my car, both excited and anxious about what lay ahead. The drive felt like an eternity, each passing mile filled with the weight of expectation. Finally, we arrived at the apartment complex, a nondescript building that blended into its surroundings. "Here goes nothing," I said, stepping out of the car. Lila followed closely, her expression a mix of determination and dread. We approached the entrance, a dull thud of our footsteps echoing through the empty hallway. I could feel the tension in the air, a sense that we were about to step into something much bigger than ourselves. We knocked on the door of apartment 3B, my heart racing. After a moment of silence, I heard footsteps approach. The door creaked open, revealing a tall man with tousled hair and weary eyes. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone cautious. "Are you Ethan Malone?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He hesitated, glancing between us, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, that's me. What do you want?" I took a deep breath, trying to mask the urgency in my tone. "We're looking for Clara Hastings. We think you might know something about her." At the mention of Clara's name, Ethan's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition mixed with apprehension crossing his face. "Clara? I don't know if I should talk about this." "Please," Lila urged, her eyes pleading. "She's missing, and we need your help." Ethan's shoulders slumped, and he stepped back, inviting us in. The apartment was dimly lit, cluttered with various belongings, as if he hadn't bothered to tidy up in a while. The air felt heavy with unspoken memories, and I sensed that whatever Ethan knew, he carried a burden far too great to bear alone. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a worn-out couch. "I'll tell you what I can." As we settled into the uncomfortable silence, I could feel the weight of Clara's fate pressing down on us, urging us to uncover the truth. "Clara and I were friends, close friends," Ethan began, his voice barely above a whisper. "But things changed. She started pulling away. I could feel it, and it scared me. I never wanted to lose her." "What do you mean?" I pressed, leaning forward, desperate for answers. She met someone else, he continued, his expression darkening. A guy she was really into, but I knew he wasn't good for her. I tried to warn her, but she wouldn't listen. Who was he? Lila asked, her voice steady. I don't know his name, Ethan replied, frustration creeping into his tone, but he had a way of manipulating her. She became a different person, more withdrawn, anxious. It was like she was under a spell. The pieces were starting to fit together, but we needed more information. Did you see Clara before she disappeared? I asked, holding my breath in anticipation. Ethan looked down, his hands clenching into fists. Yes. The night she vanished, she came to see me. She was scared, told me she needed help. But before I could do anything, she left in a hurry, and that was the last time I saw her. Did she say where she was going? Lila pressed, her voice filled with urgency. No, Ethan said, shaking his head. But I remember her mentioning something about going to confront him. She thought she could handle it on her own. I felt a knot form in my stomach. Do you think this man hurt her? Ethan's eyes were filled with regret. I don't know, but she wasn't the same after she met him. I should have done more to protect her. Just then, a soft knock echoed from the door, interrupting our conversation. Ethan's gaze darted toward the sound, a flicker of alarm crossing his face. Who could that be? Before I could respond, the door swung open, revealing a woman standing there. Her expression was one of surprise, quickly morphing into a look of disdain as her eyes landed on Ethan. Ethan, I thought I told you to stop bothering with those. She paused, noticing us. Who are they? Just some people asking about Clara, Ethan said defensively, his demeanor shifting. What do you want, Sarah? The woman's eyes narrowed as she stepped further into the apartment, her presence filling the room with a palpable tension. You need to stop digging into things you don't understand, she snapped, her tone cold. What do you know about Clara? I demanded, feeling the urgency surge through me again. Sarah crossed her arms, her gaze unwavering. I know more than you think. Clara got herself into something dangerous, and it's better if you leave it alone. Dangerous how? Lila asked, stepping forward. She's missing. We need to find her. Some things are better left buried, Sarah replied, her voice icy. You have no idea what you're dealing with. As her words hung in the air, I felt a chill run down my spine. Clara's fate was intertwined with darker forces than I had anticipated, and Sarah seemed to know more than she was letting on. Ethan glanced between us, his expression torn. Sarah, we need to help them. Clara deserves that much. Help, she scoffed, shaking her head. You can't help her. You have no idea who you're up against. What are you talking about? I pressed, desperate for answers. But before Sarah could respond, her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking the tension. She glanced at it, her eyes widening in alarm. I have to go, she said, her voice now tinged with urgency. You should all leave before it's too late. With that, she turned on her heel and left the apartment, leaving us in stunned silence. Do you think she knows what happened to Clara? Lila asked, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know, but I have a feeling she's hiding something, I replied, trying to piece together the whirlwind of emotions and revelations. Ethan looked at us, his expression haunted. You need to be careful. Clara got involved with someone dangerous, and now that you're asking questions, you could be putting yourselves at risk. We can handle it, I said, my voice filled with determination. Clara is counting on us. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. If you're going to find Clara, you need to know everything. The guy she was seeing, he has connections, and they're not good. What do you mean? Lila asked, leaning closer. He's part of something bigger, Ethan explained, his voice lowering. I don't know all the details, but Clara was getting pulled into a world filled with darkness, drugs, violence, things that go way beyond what you're thinking. The revelation hung heavily in the air. The shadows surrounding Clara were more sinister than we had ever imagined. We have to find him, I said, my voice firm. We need to know who he is and how he's connected to her disappearance. Ethan nodded, his expression grave. If you're serious about this, I can help you, but you need to be ready for what you might uncover. We exchanged glances, a mix of fear and determination reflected in our eyes. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with shadows that could swallow us whole. But we had come too far to turn back now. As we left Ethan's apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that Clara's story was far from over. The search for her would lead us deeper into darkness than we ever anticipated, and I was determined to bring her back to the light. The weight of Ethan's words hung heavy in the air as Lila and I stepped back into the crisp evening light. The sun had begun to set, casting long shadows that danced eerily along the pavement. I felt a sense of foreboding settle over me, as if we were on the precipice of something far more dangerous than we could comprehend. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Lila asked, her voice trembling slightly as we walked to the car. "What if we're in over our heads?" I glanced at her, feeling the weight of the uncertainty that loomed ahead. "We have to. Clara needs us. If there's even a chance we can find her, we can't walk away now." As we drove back to town, I could see Lila's apprehension mirrored in her eyes. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, the tension building in my chest. We needed a plan, a way to confront whatever darkness Clara had become entwined with. Ethan mentioned that Clara was involved with a dangerous crowd, I said, breaking the heavy silence. "We should find out more about them. If we can track down the people she hung out with, maybe we can piece together what happened." Lila nodded, her expression shifting from fear to determination. "Do you think any of her old friends would know where to find her?" "Maybe, but we need to be cautious," I replied, glancing at her. "We have no idea who we might be dealing with." When we returned to my place, I spread Clara's journal and the photographs across the kitchen table. "We need to focus on this guy Clara was seeing," I said, scanning the notes and images for anything that could lead us to him. Lila leaned over the table, her brow furrowing as she flipped through the pages of Clara's journal. "There's got to be something here," she murmured, searching for clues. After several minutes of combing through the entries, I noticed a scribbled name at the bottom of one of the pages. Mark Thompson. Clara had written about attending a party at his house shortly before her disappearance. "Here," I exclaimed, pointing to the name. "This guy Mark seems like a key player. If Clara was hanging out with him, maybe he can tell us about the man she was with." Lila's eyes lit up with renewed hope. "Let's find out where he lives." After a bit of research online, we discovered that Mark lived in a nearby town. Without wasting any time, we set out in my car, the growing dusk wrapping the landscape in a shroud of uncertainty. The road felt longer than usual, and every mile seemed to stretch out, filled with the weight of anticipation and dread. As we pulled up to Mark's house, I could see that it was a modest two-story building with an old car parked in the driveway. The front yard was cluttered with overgrown weeds, a stark contrast to the life Clara had once breathed into every space she occupied. "Are you ready?" Lila asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," I admitted, feeling the tension coiling within me. "But we don't have a choice." We approached the front door, my heart pounding as I raised my hand to knock. Just as I was about to rap my knuckles against the wood, the door swung open, revealing a tall man with tousled hair and an expression of confusion. "Can I help you?" Mark asked, glancing between us with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. "Are you Mark Thompson?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, that's me." "Who are you?" he replied, his gaze sharp. "I'm looking for Clara Hastings," I said, my breath hitching in my throat. "She's missing, and we think you might know something about her." Mark's expression shifted from confusion to something darker, a flicker of recognition flashing in his eyes. "Clara? I haven't seen her in a while. What makes you think I know anything?" I hesitated, feeling the weight of his gaze. "She was last seen with you. We need to know what happened to her." Mark stepped back, crossing his arms defensively. "Look, I don't know where she is. We were just friends, and I told her I didn't want to be involved with her drama." "Drama?" Lila interjected, frustration edging into her voice. "She's missing. This isn't a joke." Mark's expression hardened. "I told you, I'm not involved. Clara was always getting herself into trouble. You should have seen the guys she was hanging out with. I warned her to stay away from them." "Who were they?" I pressed, my voice rising with urgency. "If you know anything, you need to tell us." He sighed, his shoulders sagging as he glanced away, seemingly weighing his options. "Fine, but you need to understand, these guys are bad news. Clara was with Ethan before she started hanging out with this other group. They're all part of something shady, drugs, money, all that crap. Do you know their names? Lila asked, her eyes wide with fear. Just a few, Mark said, his tone growing more serious. There's a guy named Jason who's the ringleader. He's not someone you want to mess with. Where can we find him? I asked, determination fueling my words. Mark shook his head, looking conflicted. I don't want to get involved. They're dangerous, and you don't know what you're dealing with. You could end up like Clara. We can handle ourselves, I insisted, my voice steady. We're not afraid. Mark studied us for a long moment, then sighed, running a hand through his hair. If you're serious about this, I can give you an address where Jason usually hangs out. But I warn you, it's not a safe place. Please, Lila urged. We need to know where Clara is. All right. Mark relented, pulling out his phone. He quickly typed something and handed it to me. Here's the address. Just be careful. I don't want anything happening to you. As we thanked him and turned to leave, I felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through me. We were one step closer to finding Clara, but I could sense the darkness looming ahead. Back in the car, Lila looked at me, her expression a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Do you really think we're going to find her? I hope so, I said, my voice filled with resolve. But we need to prepare for whatever we might face. The drive to Jason's address was filled with an unsettling silence, each turn in the road amplifying the tension. As we arrived at a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The air was thick with anticipation and fear as we stepped out of the car, the setting sun casting an ominous glow over the building. Are you ready? Lila asked, glancing at me, her voice trembling. No, I admitted, but I knew we couldn't turn back now. We approached the entrance, the dim light flickering above us. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior filled with crates and the distant sound of laughter. As we stepped inside, I caught sight of a group of rough-looking individuals gathered in a corner, their voices low and conspiratorial. Stay close, I whispered to Lila as we made our way deeper into the warehouse. We scanned the room, searching for Jason among the crowd. My heart raced as I spotted a tall figure leaning against a crate, a cigarette dangling from his lips. He had a menacing aura, and I could feel the tension in the air as we approached. Hey, are you Jason? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The man looked up, his eyes narrowing as he assessed us. Who wants to know? We're looking for Clara Hastings, I said, holding my breath. She's missing, and we think you know something about it. His expression shifted, a flicker of interest igniting in his eyes. Clara? I might know her. What's it to you? We need to find her, Lila interjected, her voice stronger than I felt. What do you know? Jason took a step closer, his demeanor shifting from casual to threatening. What makes you think I owe you anything? Clara made her choices, and you're stepping into something you don't understand. We're not leaving until you tell us what you know, I said, trying to mask the fear bubbling beneath the surface. Is that so? He replied, a smirk creeping onto his face. Well, you better be careful what you wish for. As the tension in the air thickened, I felt Lila's hand grip mine tightly, and I knew we were about to confront something far more dangerous than we had ever imagined. Don't forget to subscribe in the channel and like the video for more contents. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue across the quiet town of Maplewood. I had spent most of my summer lounging in the sun, but today felt different. There was an inexplicable energy in the air, pulling me towards something unknown. As I walked down my street, the familiar sights of my neighborhood seemed to fade into the background, and I felt drawn to the outskirts of town, where an old, abandoned house loomed in the distance. I had heard whispers about the house over the years. It had belonged to the Hawthorne family, who mysteriously vanished one night, leaving everything behind. Local legends claimed it was haunted, a place where shadows danced in the corners and strange noises echoed through the halls. The allure of the unknown tugged at my curiosity, and I couldn't resist the pull any longer. As I approached the house, the wooden door creaked open slightly, as if inviting me in. I hesitated for a moment, my heart racing. Was it foolish to enter? I glanced back at my neighborhood, the warm light fading behind me, and made my decision. I stepped inside, the scent of mildew and decay filling the air. The interior was dark and dusty, with cobwebs hanging from the corners like ghostly curtains. As I explored the room, my footsteps echoed against the wooden floors, each sound amplifying my unease. The walls were adorned with faded wallpaper, peeling in places, and the furniture lay draped in white sheets, like forgotten memories waiting to be uncovered. I wandered through the rooms, each one more unsettling than the last. In the living room, an old grandfather clock stood silent, its hands frozen in time. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. Shadows flickered at the edge of my vision, and the silence was occasionally broken by the faintest sounds, a whisper, a rustle, like someone was watching me. As I ventured further into the house, I stumbled upon a narrow staircase leading to the second floor. My heart raced as I ascended the creaking steps, each groan of the wood echoing like a warning. The upper floor was dimly lit by the slivers of sunlight that managed to filter through the grimy windows. In one of the rooms, I noticed a dust-covered mirror hanging on the wall. As I approached, I felt a chill in the air, and my breath fogged the glass. I reached out to wipe it clean, but as my hand brushed against the surface, a cold shiver ran down my spine. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye in the reflection. I spun around, my heart pounding, but found nothing but empty space behind me. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling slightly. "Is anyone there?" Silence answered me, heavy and suffocating. I shook my head, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. But deep down, I felt a presence, something lurking just beyond my line of sight. Feeling a mix of fear and excitement, I turned back to the mirror. This time, as I gazed into its depths, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. A fleeting image of a woman in a white dress, her face shrouded in shadows, watching me with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of secrets. "Who are you?" I whispered, mesmerized by the apparition. The image vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving me breathless and bewildered. I stepped back, bumping into a dresser that wobbled precariously. In that moment of panic, a note fluttered to the ground from beneath a stack of old books on the dresser. My curiosity piqued. I picked it up and unfolded the crumpled paper. The note read, "To those who seek, beware of what you find. The house may be abandoned, but its stories are alive. Follow the whispers, and you may uncover the truth, but tread carefully. Some truths are best left buried." I stared at the note, feeling a mix of intrigue and dread. What truth was hidden within these walls? The house wasn't empty. It was filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered, and I was determined to find out more. As I tucked the note into my pocket, I heard a soft rustle from the hallway, as if someone had just passed by. My heart raced, and every instinct urged me to turn back. But my curiosity pushed me forward, and I stepped cautiously into the hallway, drawn to the mystery that awaited. The hallway stretched ahead, dimly lit and lined with doors that seemed to guard their secrets closely. I paused outside the first door on my right, its paint chipped and peeling. The doorknob was cold to the touch as I turned it slowly, the hinges creaking in protest. The room beyond was shrouded in darkness, and I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. "Just a quick look," I whispered to myself, pushing the door open wider. Inside, the room was a time capsule. Dusty furniture sat in disarray, and an old bed frame leaned against the wall, its mattress sagging. I stepped further in, my foot crunching on broken glass. It seemed someone had left in a hurry, and the remnants of their life lay scattered around me. As I scanned the room, I noticed a small chest at the foot of the bed, its wood dark and weathered. I knelt beside it, heart racing, and pulled at the latch. To my surprise, it opened with ease. Inside, I found a collection of trinkets, a faded photograph of a family, a delicate locket, and a small diary. The photograph showed a woman, a man, and a little girl, their faces beaming with joy. They stood in front of the very house I was in, the same windows I had gazed through just moments ago. I traced my fingers over the image, feeling an inexplicable connection to the scene. The diary caught my attention next. It was bound in cracked leather, its pages yellowed with age. I opened it carefully, the faint scent of ink and paper wafting up. The entries were written in a flowing script, detailing the daily life of a family who had once lived here. As I read, I learned about their struggles, their hopes, and ultimately, their fears. The final entries took a darker turn, filled with mentions of shadows lurking at the edges of their lives and whispers that echoed through the night. It was as if the house itself was alive, feeding on their fears and consuming their happiness. Just as I was absorbed in the diary, I heard it again, the faint whispering, like a gentle breeze teasing the edges of my mind. I looked up, my heart racing as I strained to listen, but it seemed to come from all around me. Suddenly, I felt a cold draft sweep through the room, chilling me to the bone. The shadows deepened, and I was enveloped in a sense of unease. I quickly closed the diary and stood, looking around the room as the whispers grew louder, swirling around me. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Show yourself?" The air thickened, and a sudden feeling of dread washed over me. I stepped back, ready to leave the room when I caught sight of a figure in the corner of my eye. My heart dropped as I turned, seeing the same woman from the mirror standing just inside the doorway, her ethereal form flickering like a candle in the wind. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible, yet filled with desperate urgency. "You must find the truth." I froze, fear gripping my chest as I locked eyes with her. There was a sadness in her gaze, a story begging to be told. I took a shaky step forward, but she faded, slipping away like smoke. The room felt colder, emptier without her presence. "Wait," I called out, but it was too late. She was gone. I stumbled back, breathless. The weight of the house pressed down on me, and I felt a surge of determination. Whatever had happened to Clara, whatever darkness lingered here, I was going to uncover it. I could feel it in my bones. The house was alive, and it needed someone to listen to its stories. Gathering my courage, I stepped back into the hallway, the whispers still swirling around me, guiding me toward the next room. I had a feeling that with every step, I was drawing closer to the truth that lay hidden within these walls. As I stepped into the hallway, the whispers grew more distinct, a soft chorus that beckoned me further into the heart of the house. The shadows seemed to dance along the walls, flickering in and out of sight, urging me onward. I felt as though the house was alive, each creak of the floorboards echoing the pulse of its secrets. I approached the next door, its surface marred by age and neglect. With a deep breath, I turned the handle and pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with antique furniture draped in white sheets. The air was thick with dust, and the faint smell of decay lingered, mingling with something else, something sweet, yet unsettling. Inside, I noticed a large armoire against one wall. The intricate carvings on its surface caught my eye, and I couldn't resist the urge to investigate further. I walked over, brushing my fingers across the wood, feeling the coolness of it beneath my touch. As I pulled open the double doors, the hinges squealed in protest. Inside, there were clothes, old-fashioned dresses and suits, all hanging neatly, as if waiting for their owners to return. I reached in, gently lifting a dress with delicate lace detailing. It felt heavy with time, and as I held it up to the dim light, I couldn't shake the feeling that it belonged to the woman I had seen. Suddenly, a gust of wind rattled the window panes, causing the sheets covering the furniture to billow like ghosts coming to life. I gasped, and a sense of foreboding washed over me. I knew I had to find out more about the family that once inhabited this space. Among the clothing, I discovered an old box tucked away in the corner of the armoire. Its lid was adorned with faded designs, and as I pried it open, a collection of letters spilled out, yellowed and fragile. I picked them up carefully, feeling the weight of their history in my hands. The letters were addressed to Clara Hawthorne, filled with tender words from a husband who seemed deeply in love. Each letter spoke of longing, of dreams for the future, and of a family they hoped to create. But as I sifted through the stack, I noticed a shift in tone. The later letters were laced with desperation, each word more frantic than the last. "Clara, something is wrong. I can feel it in my bones. The shadows are watching us. I hear them whispering at night. I don't know how much longer I can protect you. My pulse quickened as I realized the gravity of the situation. What had happened to this family? What had driven them to abandon their home? The darkness that enveloped this house was not just a figment of my imagination. It was a living force, one that had haunted the Hawthorns until they vanished. As I continued reading, I stumbled upon a final letter, crumpled and stained. The ink was smudged, the words trembling with fear. If you find this, know that I loved you until the end. I will always be with you, Clara, but I fear the shadows will take me. I felt a chill crawl up my spine, the implications of his words sinking in. Clara's husband had vanished, and she had remained behind, trapped within the walls of this house. The thought sent a shiver through me. I couldn't let her story end like this. With renewed determination, I tucked the letters back into the box and closed the armoire, my heart racing with urgency. I needed to find Clara, to uncover the truth that had remained buried in the silence of this house for far too long. As I stepped back into the hallway, I felt the whispers intensify, guiding me toward another door at the end of the corridor. This door was different. It seemed newer, the wood polished and gleaming in the dim light. I approached it slowly, feeling a strange energy radiating from beyond. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering above the doorknob. What would I find inside? Was I ready to confront whatever lay hidden in this house? With a deep breath, I gripped the knob and turned it, the door creaking open to reveal a small study, cluttered yet inviting. Books lined the walls, their spines faded and worn, and in the center of the room stood a heavy oak desk, papers strewn across its surface. My eyes were immediately drawn to a large book open on the desk, its pages yellowed with age. As I approached, I could see it was a journal, presumably belonging to Clara. I flipped through the pages, my heart pounding as I read about her daily life, her dreams, and the slow unraveling of her sanity as the shadows grew stronger. The entries were increasingly erratic, filled with drawings of dark figures and scribbled warnings. The shadows speak to me. They want something. I can't trust anyone. They're watching. I felt a sense of dread creeping in as I realized the gravity of Clara's situation. She had been trapped in this house, consumed by fear and isolation, her husband's disappearance leaving her vulnerable to whatever dark force lurked within these walls. And then, there it was, a final entry, hastily written, the ink splattered as if in panic. I will confront the shadows tonight. I must find out what they want. If I don't make it, know that I loved you always. The entry ended abruptly, the last sentence trailing off into a frantic scrawl. I closed the journal, my hands trembling. Clara had faced her fears, but what had happened to her? In that moment, I realized I couldn't leave without finding the truth. I had to uncover what had happened to Clara and her family, to bring their story to light. As I stood in the dim study, the whispers intensified, swirling around me, urging me onward. It was time to confront the shadows. I was determined to find Clara, no matter what it took. With Clara's journal clutched tightly in my hands, I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. The house, once a mere curiosity, had transformed into a haunting labyrinth of secrets, and I was determined to navigate its depths. The whispers beckoned, more insistent than ever, guiding me deeper into the heart of the darkness that enveloped this place. I left the study, the journal heavy with the weight of Clara's despair. Each step down the hallway was punctuated by the creaking floorboards beneath my feet, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see a figure lurking in the shadows, but there was nothing, only the oppressive silence that filled the air. As I approached the staircase, the whispers transformed into a cacophony, overlapping voices echoing through the halls. I took a deep breath and descended cautiously, feeling the chill of the house wrap around me like a shroud. My heart raced with anticipation and fear as I stepped into the dimly lit living room. The room was just as I had left it, yet now it felt charged with energy, as if the very walls were alive with the memories of the Hawthorne family. The shadows danced in the corners, flickering and shifting as I entered. I couldn't help but feel that Clara was still here, trapped in this space between reality and the unknown. I recalled the entries in her journal, her increasing paranoia, her desperate attempts to confront the shadows that tormented her. I had to find a way to connect with her spirit, to understand what had happened that fateful night. Perhaps there was something in the living room that could help me. I began to search through the scattered belongings, my hands brushing over dusty trinkets and photographs. My fingers landed on a framed picture, the glass smudged with age. I wiped it clean and stared at the image of Clara and her husband, their faces illuminated with joy. They looked so happy, so full of life, a stark contrast to the despair that filled Clara's later writings. A sudden gust of wind whipped through the room, sending chills down my spine. The shadows deepened, swirling around me like a storm. I gripped the picture tightly, feeling a connection to the couple that had once shared this home. I had to believe that Clara's spirit lingered, waiting for someone to uncover the truth of her existence. That's when I noticed a faint light emanating from the corner of the room. It flickered like a candle flame, illuminating an old wooden chest partially hidden beneath a tattered quilt. The glow seemed to pulse with energy, and against my better judgment, I felt compelled to approach it. As I knelt beside the chest, the whispers crescendoed, intertwining with my thoughts. Open it. Find the truth. My hands trembled as I lifted the heavy lid, the hinges protesting with a groan. Inside, I found a collection of old letters, tied with a faded ribbon. I untied the bundle, my heart racing as I began to read. Each letter was filled with longing and affection, but they also spoke of fear, the fear of something lurking just beyond their perception. Clara's husband wrote of his attempts to protect her, detailing strange occurrences that began to plague their home. I can hear them at night, whispering. I've tried to ignore it, but I fear for Clara. She is losing her grasp on reality. I continued reading, each letter revealing more of their troubled life. It became evident that Clara had become increasingly isolated, her husband's attempts to reassure her falling short against the encroaching shadows. They were losing their connection, and I could feel Clara's despair echoing through the pages. If I cannot break this curse, I fear I will lose her forever. A knot tightened in my stomach. The shadows weren't just a figment of Clara's imagination. They were a very real presence that had taken root in this house. I needed to confront them, to find a way to break their hold over Clara and her family. As I placed the letters back in the chest, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. The whispers became a frantic rush, urging me to move. I stood up, my mind racing with thoughts of how I could confront the shadows. The journal had mentioned a ritual, a way to appease the restless spirits and bring peace to the tormented. But where would I find the items needed for this ritual? The letters had hinted at specific objects, things that had belonged to Clara and her husband. I scanned the room, searching for anything that could assist me. My gaze landed on a small wooden box atop the fireplace mantel. It appeared out of place, glimmering in the dim light. With renewed purpose, I approached the box and opened it. Inside, I found a collection of trinkets, a locket, a silver ring, and a delicate hairpin. Each item radiated a sense of familiarity, as if they had been waiting for me to discover them. Clara's spirit was calling out to me, and I knew these objects were essential for the ritual. I gathered the items carefully, placing them in my backpack. As I turned to leave the living room, I felt a sudden chill, as though a cold breath brushed against my neck. I turned, half expecting to see Clara, but instead, the shadows coalesced into a figure, a dark silhouette that flickered in and out of focus. "Help me!" The voice was faint but desperate, echoing in my mind. I felt a surge of determination. I couldn't back down now. I would help Clara find peace, and in doing so, I might finally uncover the truth about what happened to her and her husband. With the item secured, I made my way back to the staircase, ready to ascend to the second floor, where I hoped to find the final pieces of the puzzle. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a whirlwind, urging me onward. It was time to confront the darkness that had haunted this house for too long. As I climbed the stairs, the atmosphere shifted, becoming heavier with anticipation. The wooden steps creaked under my weight, echoing the urgency pulsing through me. I knew I was approaching a crucial moment, one that could either bring Clara peace or plunge me deeper into the house's dark history. Reaching the second floor, I was met by a long, narrow hallway lined with closed doors. Each one seemed to whisper secrets, and I felt an overwhelming urge to open them all. But I forced myself to focus. The ritual needed to be performed in the very room where Clara had felt the most trapped, the master bedroom. I moved swiftly down the corridor, each door a silent guardian of its own tales. When I reached the last door, I hesitated, placing my hand on the cold doorknob. The air grew thick with tension, the whispers now a haunting melody urging me to proceed. I turned the knob and pushed the door open. The master bedroom was dimly lit, the curtains drawn tight against the encroaching darkness. As I stepped inside, the air felt electric, a palpable energy swirling around me. Dust motes danced in the faint light, and I could almost hear Clara's laughter echoing in the walls, juxtaposed with the sorrow that had overtaken her. I closed the door behind me, sealing myself off from the outside world. The room was filled with remnants of a life once vibrant: an ornate dresser, a plush armchair, and a large four-poster bed, its canopy heavy with dust. I could sense Clara's presence, a flicker of warmth beneath the coldness that permeated the room. Setting my backpack on the floor, I took out the wooden box and the items I had gathered: the locket, the silver ring, and the delicate hairpin. Each item felt significant, like a key to unlock the memories trapped within these walls. I arranged them on the dresser, their polished surfaces gleaming in the dim light. Next, I reached for Clara's journal, the pages filled with her fears and hopes. It was time to invoke her spirit and draw her back from the shadows. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I began to recite the ritual I had pieced together from her writings. Clara Hawthorne, I call upon your spirit. In this place where you once thrived, I seek to bring you peace. Your heart holds the truth, and your voice must be heard. Please return to this realm and guide me. As I spoke, the atmosphere thickened, and I felt a sudden chill sweep through the room. The shadows in the corners seemed to ripple, flickering like candle flames caught in a gust of wind. I closed my eyes, focusing on the items before me, envisioning Clara standing in the room, her spirit vibrant and alive. I opened my eyes to find the air shimmering with an ethereal light. The locket twinkled, and I felt a pull toward it, as if Clara's essence was awakening. I picked it up, the metal warm against my skin, and held it close to my heart. Clara, I know you are here. I want to help you find peace. What do you need? I whispered, my voice trembling with emotion. Suddenly, the room grew darker, the shadows deepening as a figure began to coalesce in front of me. Clara stood there, her form translucent, but her eyes bright with desperation. You shouldn't be here, she warned, her voice a haunting melody that resonated with both sorrow and fear. They will come for you too. I'm not afraid, I replied, feeling a surge of determination. I've come to help you. Please, tell me how I can set you free. Her expression softened, and for a moment, the weight of her sorrow lifted. You must confront them. The shadows are not just my tormentors. They are the echoes of my pain. To break their hold, you must acknowledge the truth of what happened here. As she spoke, I felt a darkness creeping into the room, an oppressive presence that made my skin crawl. I turned to see shadows pooling at the foot of the bed, swirling and flickering, their whispers growing louder, filled with anger and despair. Clara, I cried out, fear gripping my heart. What do I do? Face them. Show them you will not back down, she urged, her voice trembling. You have the strength within you. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself against the encroaching shadows. I stepped forward, holding the locket and the other items tightly in my hand. You have no power here, I shouted, my voice firm. Clara deserves peace, and I will not let you take her any longer. The shadows recoiled, swirling around me in a tempest of darkness, their whispers rising to a deafening roar. I could feel their anger, their desperation to hold on to Clara's spirit. But I pressed on, feeling the warmth of Clara's essence surrounding me. Clara, I believe in you, I called out. You are more than this darkness. You can break free. With each word, I felt the energy shift in the room. The shadows hesitated, and I took that moment to raise the locket high above my head, channeling my intent into the gesture. I release you. You have no hold on her. The locket glowed brightly, illuminating the room in a brilliant light that pushed back the shadows. Their whispers turned to wails as the light engulfed them, and I could feel Clara's spirit strengthening beside me. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice softening as the shadows began to dissolve, drawn into the light. "You've given me hope." As the last remnants of darkness faded, Clara's figure grew more solid, her presence a warm glow in the room. "I can finally rest. Thank you for believing in me." With that, Clara smiled, an expression of pure relief that lit up her face. The room felt lighter, the oppressive energy dissipating like mist under the morning sun. I could sense that the weight of the house had shifted, that it was finally at peace. "I'll never forget you, Clara," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You deserve to be free. I will always be with you," she replied, her voice fading gently. "Thank you for your courage." And just like that, she was gone. The room fell silent, the shadows now merely echoes of the past. I stood there for a moment, taking in the serenity that had replaced the chaos. The journey had not been in vain. Clara had found her peace, and in doing so, I had discovered my own strength. As I stood in the now quiet master bedroom, I felt a profound sense of closure wash over me. The air, once thick with despair, had transformed into a gentle, soothing embrace. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, reflecting on the weight of the experience. Clara's presence had brought me clarity and strength, but there were still echoes of the past that needed addressing. I turned to the dresser, where Clara's belongings lay. The locket, the silver ring, and the delicate hairpin seemed to shimmer with newfound life, their significance now resonating deeply within me. Each item told a story, a fragment of Clara's life that had been intertwined with this house, her joy, her sadness, and ultimately, her struggle for freedom. Feeling a compulsion to honor her memory, I carefully placed the items back into the wooden box, intending to keep them safe. Perhaps I would return to visit this house, this place that had held so many secrets, and I could share Clara's story with others who might be drawn to its haunting beauty. But first, I had to confront one last lingering mystery, the origins of the shadows and the darkness that had haunted Clara. I needed to understand who, or what, had tethered her spirit to this place. With a determined heart, I stepped out of the master bedroom, ready to investigate further. I made my way down the hallway, the floorboards creaking softly beneath my feet. Each room I passed felt different now, imbued with a sense of possibility rather than despair. As I reached the staircase, I noticed a faint light flickering from a room at the end of the hall, a room I hadn't yet explored. Pushing open the door, I found myself in what appeared to be a study. Dust-covered books lined the shelves, and an old desk sat in the center, littered with papers and a tarnished brass lamp that flickered as if still attempting to illuminate the darkness. The walls were adorned with old photographs, their faces staring back at me, capturing moments of joy and sorrow from a bygone era. As I moved closer to the desk, I felt a shiver run down my spine. Among the clutter, I spotted an open journal, its pages yellowed with age. The writing was hurried and frantic, a stark contrast to Clara's elegant script. With a mix of curiosity and trepidation, I picked up the journal and began to read. The entries detailed the life of a previous occupant of the house, someone named Edward Hawthorne, Clara's father. The words revealed a man deeply troubled, plagued by financial difficulties and familial pressures. As the entries progressed, they became increasingly erratic, hinting at dark thoughts and strange occurrences within the house. Edward wrote of hearing whispers at night, of shadows moving just beyond his vision, and of a growing paranoia that consumed him. The final entries detailed a chilling descent into madness, leading to a desperate plea for help that never arrived. The last page was torn, leaving behind only an unfinished sentence that hinted at something sinister lurking in the shadows. A cold dread settled in my stomach as I pieced together the connection. Clara's father had been overwhelmed by his own darkness, a darkness that had seeped into the house, clinging to the walls and waiting for its next victim. It was this legacy of pain and fear that had tethered Clara's spirit, trapping her in a cycle of sorrow that echoed throughout the years. Just then, I heard a soft rustle behind me. I spun around, heart racing, and found a flickering shadow darting across the room. My breath caught in my throat, as I realized it wasn't just a trick of the light. The darkness seemed to pulse with life, swirling and gathering in the corners, as if drawn to the journal and the history it contained. "Edward," I whispered, the name tasting foreign on my tongue. "Is that you?" The shadows thickened, swirling faster as if responding to my call. I took a step back, my mind racing. "What do you want?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the rising fear. The shadows paused, and for a moment, the air grew still. Then, they began to take shape, coalescing into a vague form that bore a striking resemblance to the man in the old photographs. Edward Hawthorne stood before me, his face a mixture of anguish and longing. "Help me," he rasped, his voice barely a whisper, laden with desperation. I didn't mean to hurt her. I thought I could protect her, but I lost control. The weight of his sorrow hung heavily in the air. I understood now that Edward was not a malevolent spirit. He was a man consumed by his own fears and failures. "You can set her free," I said, my heart pounding with resolve. "You have to acknowledge what you did. You must confront the pain you caused." Edward's expression flickered, and the shadows around him shifted uneasily. I was trying to shield her from the darkness. I thought it would keep her safe, but I only drew it closer. "Your fear trapped her," I urged, feeling the urgency of the moment. "You have to let go of that fear. Only then can she find peace." For a moment, his figure wavered, the shadows around him flickering in and out of focus. "I never wanted this for her. I thought I could control it. I was wrong. Clara needs you to forgive yourself, Edward." I pressed, my voice steady. "Release her from your pain, and she can finally rest." He hesitated, the shadows around him trembling as if caught in a fierce internal battle. I felt the air grow heavy, the pressure building as I waited for him to respond. "I'm so sorry, Clara," he finally whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "I wanted to protect you. I loved you more than anything." The room fell silent, and a calm began to wash over the swirling shadows. I could feel Clara's presence return, a gentle warmth filling the space. "Father," she said softly, her voice echoing through the stillness. "You don't have to hold on to this pain anymore. Let it go." As Clara spoke, the darkness around Edward began to dissolve, retreating into the corners of the room. His form shimmered, and I could see the anguish on his face begin to fade. I forgive myself," he stammered, his voice rising in strength. "I'll let you go, Clara. I'm so sorry for everything." The shadows shrank back, their hold on the room weakening as Edward's admission washed over us like a cleansing tide. I could feel the air shift, the oppressive weight lifting as Clara stepped closer to her father. "I love you, Father," she said, her voice full of compassion. "You did your best, and that's all I ever wanted." In that moment, the shadows evaporated, leaving behind a tranquil light that filled the room with warmth. Edward's figure became clearer, a serene smile spreading across his face as he looked at Clara. "I can finally let go," he said, his voice full of relief. The room shimmered with energy, and as they embraced, I felt a profound sense of peace enveloping us all. The house, once a prison of pain, had transformed into a sanctuary of healing. As the last remnants of darkness faded away, I felt my own heart lighten. I had not only helped Clara find her peace, but I had also given Edward the chance to release his burdens. Together, they had broken the cycle of sorrow that had haunted this house for far too long. The energy in the room pulsed with gratitude, and I knew that I had fulfilled my purpose. "Thank you," I whispered, feeling a deep connection to both Clara and Edward. In that quiet moment, I understood that the journey had changed me. I had faced the shadows, not just of the house, but of my own fears, and emerged stronger for it. As I stepped back, I watched Clara and Edward fade into the light, their spirits intertwined, forever free from the shackles of their past. As the last echoes of Clara and Edward's presence faded, I stood alone in the once haunted house, the sunlight streaming through the dust-laden windows. It felt as if a heavy veil had been lifted, allowing the warmth of a new day to envelop the space. The air was fresh and vibrant, and the unsettling stillness had transformed into a soothing hum of life. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the newfound energy that permeated the house. It was as if the very walls had exhaled a sigh of relief, shedding years of sorrow and pain. I felt lighter, unburdened by the shadows that had clung to this place for so long. It was a beautiful feeling, almost surreal. Curiosity pulled me back to the study, where Edward's journal still lay open on the desk. I stepped inside, drawn to the remnants of their past, eager to learn more about the lives they had led before their spirits found release. As I flipped through the pages, the earlier frantic scrawls began to morph into a calmer, more reflective hand. Edward's final entries painted a picture of a man who, despite his struggles, had moments of profound love and connection with his daughter. Their shared memories danced off the pages, trips to the local fair, stories told by candlelight, and the simple joys of family life that had once filled their home with laughter. With each word, I felt a deeper connection to them, as if I was uncovering pieces of a puzzle that had long been hidden away. I understood now that their struggles were not just their own, but were part of the human experience, the fight to overcome our fears and the desire for connection. My thoughts drifted to Clara's world, the one she had shared with her father, and the joy that had once filled this house. It was a reminder that even in darkness, light could break through, illuminating the path forward. I knew I had to honor their memory by ensuring that this house was no longer a place of fear, but a sanctuary for those seeking solace. With a renewed sense of purpose, I decided to make it my mission to restore the house. I envisioned it as a community space, a haven where people could gather to share stories, find healing, and celebrate life. Perhaps I would host workshops on creativity and healing, encouraging others to express themselves through art, writing, or music. I felt a surge of excitement at the thought, and I made my way through the house, envisioning the changes I would implement. The once dreary rooms would be filled with color and light. The master bedroom would become a cozy reading nook, lined with bookshelves, while the study would transform into a creative studio, filled with art supplies and inspiration. As I made my way downstairs, I heard the faintest sound, a soft rustling from the corner of the living room. My heart raced as I turned toward the source, but instead of fear, I felt an overwhelming sense of calm. There, perched on the old armchair, was a small bird, its feathers a brilliant shade of blue. It looked at me with curious eyes, as if it had flown in to deliver a message of hope. I approached cautiously, not wanting to scare it away. The bird chirped a sweet melody that resonated in my heart, a song of renewal and rebirth. It was a sign, I thought, a symbol of new beginnings and the light that follows even the darkest of times. The house, once steeped in sorrow, was now brimming with potential, and I felt compelled to embrace that energy. Over the next few days, I dedicated myself to the house, pouring my heart into every room. I cleaned and painted, restored the furniture, and filled the space with plants and art. I infused it with love and care, transforming it into a reflection of the stories I had uncovered. I wanted anyone who entered to feel the healing energy that had blossomed from the ashes of grief. As I worked, I often caught glimpses of the blue bird flitting about the yard, singing its sweet melody. It became a companion, a reminder of the connection I had forged with Clara and Edward. I felt their spirits around me, guiding my hands, encouraging me to create a legacy that honored their lives. With each passing day, the house transformed into a vibrant community space. Word spread about my efforts, and soon, neighbors and friends began to join in. They helped paint murals, set up a library, and create a small garden in the backyard, where people could gather and share their stories. On the day of the grand opening, I stood at the entrance, filled with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The once abandoned house now stood proudly, its colors bright and inviting. The air was alive with laughter and chatter as people arrived, eager to see the changes I had made. As I welcomed guests, I noticed that many of them lingered in the rooms, taking in the atmosphere, the artwork, and the love that radiated from every corner. I shared the story of Clara and Edward, emphasizing the importance of acknowledging our pasts, both the light and the dark, in order to move forward. The response was overwhelming. People connected with the story, sharing their own experiences of loss and healing. It became a night of camaraderie and understanding, as we all gathered in the living room, sharing stories, laughter, and tears. The blue bird returned that evening, perched on the windowsill, chirping its melody as the sun set. It felt as if Clara and Edward were there with us, watching over their home, proud of the transformation that had taken place. As I looked around at the faces of my friends and neighbors, I realized that I had achieved my goal. The house, once filled with despair, had become a sanctuary of hope and healing. In transforming it, I had also transformed myself, discovering the power of love and connection that transcends time and space. In that moment, I understood that Clara and Edward's story would live on, not just in this house, but in the hearts of all who had come together to create something beautiful from the remnants of the past. And as the night deepened, the melodies of laughter and connection filled the air. I felt a profound sense of peace settle within me. The darkness had been dispelled, and in its place bloomed a vibrant tapestry of life, a testament to the enduring power of love and the healing light that emerges after the storm. As the celebration continued into the night, the once quiet house vibrated with laughter, music, and the warmth of human connection. I marveled at how far the space had come in such a short time. It was a living testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reflection of how we can reclaim joy even in the aftermath of sorrow. As guests mingled, I noticed an older woman seated in the corner, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia. She had arrived quietly, slipping in through the back door, and now she watched the festivities with a knowing smile. I felt drawn to her, as if there was a story waiting to unfold between us. I approached her, my curiosity piqued. "Hello, I'm glad you could join us. What do you think of the house?" She looked up at me, her gaze penetrating. "It's beautiful, dear. It reminds me of the home I grew up in long ago, a place filled with laughter just like this one." "Really? What was it like?" I asked, eager to hear her story. She chuckled softly, her voice warm and melodic. "Oh, it was a different time. The world was simpler back then. My family would gather every weekend for dinner, telling stories that echoed through the halls. We had our share of troubles, but love was always the thread that held us together." As she spoke, I felt the weight of her memories, moments of joy intertwined with the bittersweetness of loss. It was a reminder that every home carries the stories of its inhabitants, each echo resonating through time. "Do you believe in spirits?" I asked, half joking, but with genuine curiosity. The woman's eyes twinkled. "I do. I think they linger in the places we loved, watching over us. Your home is filled with warmth, but it also has a history, doesn't it?" I nodded, recalling Clara and Edward. "Yes, it does. I found a journal belonging to the previous owner, and it shared their struggles and joys. I wanted to create a space where those stories could continue." She smiled knowingly. "That's a beautiful intention. Sometimes we need to give voices to those who can no longer speak, to let their stories live on." Just then, a group of children ran past us, giggling and playing tag. The woman's gaze softened, and I could see the memories of her own youth dancing behind her eyes. Children remind us of the innocence we often lose. They are the heart of every home. As the evening progressed, I found myself lost in conversation with the woman, learning about her life, her dreams, and her journey. Her name was Margaret, and she had lived in the town for decades. She shared tales of community gatherings, the traditions that had shaped the neighborhood, and the laughter that once filled the streets. I felt a connection with her, as if the threads of our lives were woven together in some unseen tapestry. The stories she shared resonated deeply within me, fueling my passion for the house and the community I was building. It was a reminder that we all carry our histories, and each of us contributes to the greater narrative of humanity. As midnight approached, the festivities began to wind down. Guests exchanged warm goodbyes, their hearts full of hope and connection. I felt a sense of fulfillment wash over me, knowing that I had created something meaningful in this space. Before everyone departed, I gathered the remaining guests in the living room for a final toast. "Thank you all for being here tonight, and for helping me breathe new life into this house. Together, we have transformed a space filled with sorrow into one overflowing with joy. May we continue to gather here, share our stories, and support one another." Cheers erupted around the room, and I felt a surge of gratitude for the community I had begun to cultivate. It was more than just a celebration. It was a commitment to each other, a promise to foster connection and healing. As the last guests left, I stood at the door, watching them walk away under the starlit sky. I felt a sense of pride in what we had accomplished together, but also a stirring in my heart, a sense that the story was not yet complete. The next morning, as the sun peeked through the curtains, illuminating the house in a warm glow, I decided to explore the attic. The lingering memory of Clara and Edward urged me to seek out more of their history, to understand the depth of their lives and the love that once filled these walls. With each step up the creaking staircase, I felt a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. The attic had always felt like a forbidden space, a repository of forgotten things. But now, it was time to confront what lay hidden within. I reached the attic door and hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath before pushing it open. Dust motes danced in the air, catching the light as I stepped inside. The attic was dimly lit, but the scattered beams of sunlight revealed boxes and trunks piled high, remnants of a past life waiting to be uncovered. I moved carefully through the clutter, brushing my fingers against old furniture and delicate trinkets. Each object held a story, a connection to the past, and I could almost hear whispers of forgotten laughter mingling with the dust. After rummaging through several boxes, I stumbled upon an old trunk with intricate carvings adorning its surface. My heart raced as I knelt before it, feeling a strange pull towards this particular piece. The latch was rusty, but gave way with a gentle nudge, revealing a treasure trove of memories. Inside, I found letters tied with faded ribbons, photographs of Clara and Edward, and mementos from their life together, each item a testament to their love and the life they had shared. My fingers trembled as I picked up a delicate locket, opening it to reveal a tiny portrait of Clara as a child, her face radiant with innocence. It was a moment of profound connection, a glimpse into the happiness they once knew. I could almost feel their presence in the attic, guiding me to uncover their story. I spent hours sifting through the contents of the trunk, absorbing every detail, every emotion. It became clear to me that Clara had loved to dance, as evidenced by the delicate ballet slippers tucked away in a corner. There were also sketches of dreamlike landscapes and whimsical creatures, revealing her imaginative spirit. As I explored further, I discovered a stack of letters addressed to Edward, filled with words of love and encouragement from Clara. They spoke of their dreams, their struggles, and the deep bond they had shared. Each letter was a piece of their story, a reflection of their unwavering support for one another. I realized that their love had not only filled this house with warmth, but had also created a legacy that transcended time. Their spirits were not just echoes of the past. They were a reminder of the power of love to heal and transform. With renewed determination, I knew I had to share their story, to honor their memories by continuing the work I had started. I envisioned a small exhibition within the house, a gallery of Clara's art, the letters and photographs, where others could come to learn about their lives and the love that had once filled these walls. As I closed the trunk, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey I had undertaken. The attic was no longer a space of fear. It was a sanctuary of discovery, a place where the past converged with the present, illuminating the path forward. Stepping back into the light, I felt a surge of excitement about what lay ahead. The house, once burdened by darkness, had been transformed into a beacon of hope, and it was time to let that light shine. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the landscape, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. The attic had become a treasure trove of memories, revealing the love story of Clara and Edward in all its complexity. With each discovery, I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility to honor their legacy and ensure that their spirits would forever be entwined with this home. The idea of an exhibition began to take shape in my mind. I envisioned a warm, inviting space filled with Clara's artwork, letters, and photographs, a place where visitors could step into the past and feel the love that had once flourished within these walls. It would be a celebration of their lives, a tribute to the enduring power of love, and a reminder that every home holds echoes of the people who have come before us. I decided to begin the preparations immediately. The next day, I called upon my friends and neighbors, inviting them to assist me in transforming the attic into a gallery. Their enthusiasm was infectious, and soon the community rallied around the project, eager to help breathe life into the memories that had been tucked away for too long. As the days passed, we worked tirelessly, clearing out the attic and organizing the contents of Clara and Edward's trunk. Laughter and chatter filled the air, creating an atmosphere of joy and camaraderie. Together, we hung Clara's sketches on the walls, displaying her talent for capturing the beauty of the world around her. Each piece told a story of its own, revealing her spirit and passion for life. I spent hours reading through the letters, carefully curating them to share the essence of Clara and Edward's love. I selected excerpts that highlighted their dreams, fears, and the unwavering support they provided for one another. It was a testament to their relationship, a reminder that love is not merely a feeling, but a choice made daily through acts of kindness and understanding. One evening, while sorting through the letters, I came across a note that made my heart skip a beat. It was addressed to Edward and contained Clara's thoughts about their future. She wrote about her dreams of starting a family, of nurturing their children in a home filled with laughter and love. The words were raw and vulnerable, a window into her hopes and aspirations. As I read, I couldn't help but feel the weight of her longing, the echo of a dream that had never come to fruition. Tears filled my eyes as I realized the depth of their connection. They had built a life together, one filled with love and possibility, but it had been cut short. In that moment, I vowed to honor not just their memories, but also the dreams they had held dear. As the opening day of the exhibition approached, excitement buzzed through the community. Flyers had been distributed, and people were eager to see the transformation of the attic. It was a celebration not only of Clara and Edward's love, but also of our shared humanity, our capacity to connect, to dream, and to uplift one another. The night before the exhibition, I spent hours in the attic, arranging the final touches. I lit candles that cast a soft glow, creating an ambience that felt warm and inviting. Each piece of art and every letter was carefully positioned, telling the story of a love that had transcended time. When I finished, I stepped back and admired the space. It was no longer just an attic. It had become a sanctuary, a celebration of love and memory. The walls seemed to hum with the energy of the past, and I felt a profound sense of gratitude for what Clara and Edward had shared. The day of the exhibition arrived, and the community gathered, filling the house with warmth and excitement. As people entered the attic, I welcomed them with open arms, eager to share the story of Clara and Edward. Their eyes widened in awe as they wandered through the gallery, absorbing the beauty of the artwork and the depth of the letters. I stood by the entrance, sharing snippets of Clara and Edward's lives, highlighting their dreams and aspirations. It was a moment of connection, a bridge between the past and the present, a reminder that love is a force that binds us all together. As the evening unfolded, I noticed a young girl standing in front of one of Clara's sketches, her eyes filled with wonder. I approached her, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "What do you think?" I asked gently. "It's beautiful." "She must have been really happy," the girl replied, her innocence shining through. I smiled, touched by her words. She was. Clara poured her heart into her art, and her happiness came from the love she shared with Edward. The girl nodded thoughtfully. "Do you think they're still here, watching us?" I glanced around the attic, feeling a wave of warmth wash over me. "I believe they are. Their love lingers in this space, and it brings us together." As the night continued, stories were shared, laughter echoed, and connections were forged. It was a celebration of love, a reminder that even in the face of loss, we can find solace in the memories of those who came before us. As the last guest departed, I stood in the attic, enveloped in a profound sense of peace. Clara and Edward's story had been honored, their love celebrated, and in that moment, I felt their presence, a gentle whisper assuring me that I had done right by them. The attic had transformed from a forgotten space into a vibrant testament to love, connection, and the power of memory. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we can find light through the stories we share and the bonds we create. With a heart full of gratitude and a spirit renewed, I closed the attic door, knowing that the journey was far from over. Clara and Edward had gifted me with more than just their memories. They had ignited a passion within me to continue sharing stories, to keep the echoes of the past alive, and to foster a community where love thrives. As weeks turned into months after the exhibition, the attic remained a cherished sanctuary for me and the community. Clara and Edward's story had resonated deeply with those who attended, igniting conversations about love, loss, and the threads that connect us all. The gallery became a gathering place for people to share their own stories, to connect over their joys and heartaches, and to celebrate the enduring power of love. With the success of the exhibition, I felt inspired to create more opportunities for storytelling within our community. I organized regular gatherings in the attic, inviting people to come together and share their personal tales, whether of love, loss, or life lessons learned. Each meeting was a unique tapestry of voices, where laughter mingled with tears, and every story brought us closer as a community. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in hues of pink and orange, I prepared for our next storytelling night. I lit candles around the attic, their flickering flames casting gentle shadows on the walls, and set up cozy seating areas with blankets and cushions. The air was filled with a sense of anticipation as people began to arrive, their faces illuminated by the warm glow of the candles. As the night unfolded, stories were shared, some heartbreaking, others uplifting. A local grandmother recounted her childhood during the war, speaking of resilience and hope in the face of despair. A young couple shared their journey of overcoming obstacles to find love. Each story was a reminder of the human experience, the beauty and complexity of life, and how love could shine through even the darkest times. As the last storyteller concluded, I felt a surge of gratitude for the community that had formed in the attic. We had created a space where vulnerability was celebrated, where hearts could be laid bare without fear of judgment. In sharing our stories, we discovered the threads that wove us together, the shared experiences, emotions, and dreams that transcended time and circumstance. After the event, as the guests lingered to chat and reflect, I noticed a young man standing quietly in the corner, clutching a worn journal. He seemed lost in thought, his gaze drifting over the sketches and letters displayed on the walls. Intrigued, I approached him, offering a warm smile. "Hi there. I'm glad you could join us tonight. What did you think of the stories?" I asked. He looked up, his eyes reflecting a mixture of sadness and contemplation. They were beautiful. It's just, I've been thinking a lot about my own story lately. "What do you mean?" I encouraged him gently. He hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I lost my sister a few years ago. She was my best friend. I always thought I'd have more time to tell her everything I wanted to say. But now, I feel like I've missed my chance." My heart ached for him, knowing the weight of such loss. "I'm so sorry to hear that. It's never easy to lose someone you love, but sharing your story can be a way to honor her memory. You can still keep her spirit alive through your words." He nodded, a flicker of hope lighting up his expression. "I've been writing in this journal. Maybe I could share some of it next time?" "Absolutely. I'd love to hear it. This space is all about sharing and healing," I replied encouragingly. As the evening wound down, I felt a sense of purpose swell within me. The attic had transformed into more than just a gallery. It had become a refuge for those seeking connection and understanding, a place where stories were woven into the fabric of our lives. In the following weeks, more people began to attend our gatherings. Each meeting felt like a reunion, with familiar faces and new ones alike. The attic was alive with the energy of shared experiences, and the stories continued to flow, connecting us all. One evening, as I prepared to introduce the next storyteller, I noticed the young man from before, the one who had lost his sister, sitting in the front row, his journal open in his lap. He had taken my words to heart, and I felt a swell of pride for him. As he stood up to share his story, a hush fell over the room. His voice trembled at first, but as he continued, the words poured out like a river, raw and honest. He spoke of his sister's laughter, her dreams, and the moments they had shared. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he recounted their childhood adventures and the deep bond they had formed. In that moment, the attic felt charged with emotion. Everyone listened intently, fully present, holding space for his grief and his love. By the end of his story, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. When he finished, a profound silence enveloped us, a collective acknowledgement of the vulnerability he had shared. It was a reminder of the power of storytelling, of how it can heal wounds and bring us closer together. As I looked around the room, I saw nods of understanding and compassion on everyone's faces. "I want to thank you for sharing your story with us tonight," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "Your sister's spirit shines through your words, and we are honored to hear about the love you shared. This is what our gatherings are all about, creating a space for connection, healing, and honoring those we've lost." The young man smiled through his tears, and I could see a sense of relief wash over him. In that moment, he realized that he had not just shared his story, he had invited us all to bear witness to the love that never truly dies. As the evening concluded, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the community we had built together. Clara and Edward's legacy lived on through each story shared, a testament to the love that connects us all. In the months that followed, our gatherings continued to flourish, becoming a cherished tradition in the community. People looked forward to the evenings in the attic, eager to share their stories and listen to others. The space became a beacon of hope, where love and connection thrived. And as I looked back on the journey that had led me here, I knew that I had been transformed by the experience. I had learned the importance of sharing our stories, of honoring the past while embracing the present, and of finding strength in vulnerability. Clara and Edward's love had woven its way into the hearts of everyone who entered the attic, creating a legacy that would endure for generations to come. I felt honored to be a steward of their story, carrying their love forward and inviting others to do the same. And so, I continued to welcome everyone into our attic, knowing that each new voice added another layer to the tapestry of our shared humanity. Together, we were crafting a narrative of love, loss, and resilience, a testament to the power of connection in a world that often felt fragmented. Don't forget to subscribe in the channel and like the video for more contents.